To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you for coming, everybody. The Select Board had to run upstairs to take a quick vote. They're going to be back in less than 5 minutes, they said. So I'd like to get started with our first agenda item tonight, which we're lucky enough to have Chris Clutchman from Director of Housing Choice Program through the state. And she did a presentation at Citizen Planner this year that I was lucky enough to see, and I thought it'd be beneficial for our town to also see this presentation. So, Chris, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. Maren says that over here is a good place for me to go.
It's
and
perfect, yep.
I won't block the views. Well, it's really great to be here. For those of you who don't know, for the 7 years before I joined the state in November, I worked for the town of Westford. So, hi everybody. I understand what it's like at the local level, and so I kind of come into this role in the state and talking about housing and how important it is, trying to solve the housing issue. I come at it from the local level. So Maren, if you can go to the next slide. I'm going to spend some time in this presentation talking about why we have a housing crisis, what it is. I'm going to talk a little bit about demographics of like who's in Massachusetts and why that matters. And then I'm going to talk about some of the solutions that the Baker-Plato administration has been working on. So one of the big things that's happened that you may not know it, and this chart is statewide data, and it's looking back to the 1980s, 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, where we were producing almost 30,000 housing units a year as a state. And then if you look at the 90s to now, we're producing about half of that, a lot less. And that the division here in the dark color and the light color is multifamily as the dark, and the bright blue is single family. So, you know, we're just literally producing less. The supply is less. So as a result of that, this is a chart that shows housing prices. So the blue line here is Massachusetts. The black line is the country as a whole. And so if you go back to 1980, when we were back at that 30,000 units a year level, we were right in the midst of kind of the normal housing prices. And this is single-family home sales indexed over time. And you can see we're outpacing the rest of the country in the rise of the single-family home price. And that includes California and New York State as a whole. So again, this is statewide data. Not only home ownership, but also rents have increased. So we're the 7th highest rents in the country. And if you think about the Metro Boston area where we are here, Metro Boston has the 4th highest rents in the country. So in some sense, you can think of this, it's a really pretty simple supply and demand issue. We are producing less supply, and the prices have gone up. Next slide. And this is really kind of a shocking chart. It shows all the counties in Massachusetts, and it lists, and I've highlighted Middlesex County here, and this is rental vacancy on the left and home ownership vacancy on the right. For those of you who work with realtors or who are realtors, you'll hear there's no inventory, there's no inventory. They're really, the inventory is very constrained. A healthy rental market, just to give you a sense, is somewhere between 4% and 6%. If you're a renter, you really want more on the 6% side. That gives you choice. You're looking around at different units. You're able to go from one unit to the next in comfort without feeling like you have constrained. No county in Massachusetts is above 4%. And the counties that have the higher rates are really kind of our vacation counties, where there just are more rentals to begin with. So this is really just, again, it's an indication of our supply is really very constrained. So, and this is just another way to look at rents. This is a chart that's showing the rents from 2006 to 2016. The light gray here is 2006, and then the dark is 2016. And this is Middlesex County data. And so I should say you are going to get, Maren has a copy of the PowerPoint in a PDF. So a lot of these details, if you're trying to read the images, you'll be able to look at it at your leisure. But I can tell you that the right-hand price point is $2,000 a month. And I think actually if we put this, if that scale went further out, we'd be seeing $2,400 and $3,000 a month. It wouldn't be quite as high. But you can see how, we're just seeing more and more in this higher end, and really that middle piece is not rising quickly at all. So the people who are really looking for that, middle rents are really kind of out of luck in Middlesex County. So one of the things that I did is I'm showing Worcester County because I'm looking at the data in this slideshow is going to include the entire region of the Magic region, which is the sub-region of the Metro Area Planning Council that Littleton is in, and that includes I think one town that's in Worcester County. But when I show other data, you'll see all of those towns are clustered together. So Worcester County, it's a little bit different, Amar, and if you go back to Middlesex County, just so you see Middlesex County, again, has some of the closer in to Boston, and those are higher rents, and if you go to Worcester County, it's a little bit less and it's a little bit lower, and you really don't see the extremes, and so Worcester County does have a little bit more affordability just to the west. So one of the issues with that in terms of housing is that as you if you're having to get further and further away from major employment centers, people are having to drive further. So we've got this transportation and housing kind of knit together, but it's problematic if people are having to move further and further west if the employment is to the east or to the south. Okay. So that's a very quick overview of the kind of housing and the lack of supply of housing in Massachusetts. In a little bit, I'm going to talk about some more housing data for this region, the Magic region, which it starts in Lexington and kind of comes all the way out Route 2 and Route 119 to Littleton, I think, and then goes to Bolton and then goes south to Stowe. Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk a little bit now about people, about demographics. And so this is the next slide I have is actually, if you get a little seasick, don't worry. It has a little bit of movement in it, but I'm going to walk you through an animation that's going to show the baby boom and how that's changed. And it's going to start in 1970 and go to now. Go ahead, Maren. So as you can see in this slide, this is the baby boom, that kind of big group, that tall group of folks moving through the ages as getting older and older as we're going further and further along. So what I've done here is I've shown the red line here is in 1970, that age bracket of 50 to 54, and you can just pretty much see at a glance how many more people there are in that baby boom age. And that baby boom age, this is 2016. You can see to the left, that's the millennials. So that's the echo of the baby boom. Those are our kids. But there are just so many more people that are in this middle age. And this has a lot of ramifications for what's going to happen. It's going to affect employment because folks are going to retire. I hope someday to retire. It's going to affect what kind of housing people need, because this large group of people, just numerically large group of people, may need different kinds of housing. We may not want a single family house. We may not want to shovel. Like I'm just getting over tendonitis, right? I don't know how much more I can do it. My kids are in college, the millennials, they're moving through. I don't have the help I need. I'm really starting to think about, okay, I need some different kinds of housing. The other thing I wanted to point out here in this bar, the lower bar that I've put, it shows that's the level in 1970 of the number of people that were 85 and older. So one of the big things that's happening is that we have especially in the Boston metro area, we have fantastic health care. People are living longer. Look at how many more people that there are in this age category in 2016 from 1970. That is significant. And that, again, hopefully, we're all going to live a little bit longer, and maybe longer than the generations before us. But that also has implications for the kind of housing that we need. Not only are baby boomers maybe moving out of their maybe single family house and looking for some different kind of housing product, but we also have people who are kind of quite elderly, very wise, very elderly. Thanks, next, Maren. So again, talking about what's going to happen. This is a slide from the MAPC, your regional planning agency, and this is just Boston metro area data, and this is looking at the baby boomers in black now, and then in 2030, so looking out into the future. And on the left, we have the labor force. So these are baby boomers who are working. There are 1.2 million of them in the Boston metro area. That's going to drop significantly. Again, remember that the wave that's going, those people are going to get older and older and are mostly going to retire. But on the right-hand side, what MAPC is projecting is that while the baby boomer households won't drop into the same extent. So people are going to retire, but they're going to stay put. That's their projections. They're not necessarily going to leave the metro area, and they're not necessarily going to die. Like it's not like you retire and you die. You're going to retire and you're going to stay around for a while. And so this has implications to, well, are people going to stay in their houses? Are we going to have, where are those millennials going to move in? There's a fairly natural cycle of people, having a single family house, potentially raising, not that this happens to everybody, but raising your family and then moving into different kinds of housing situation. That may not happen with the baby boom generation, or at least projected by MAPC. Next. So this slide is looking at the labor force. On the top, in the blue or the dark blue and the light blue, is the state as a whole. And on these are age brackets again, these kind of same 5-year age brackets. The dark blue is people who are in the labor force, and the light blue people who are not. So our young kids, some of them have jobs, but not all, and the retirees, again, some are still working, but for the most part are not working. What you see here in that statewide, just staying at the top for a second, is you see this 45 to 54, there's 2 age brackets that are together. And if you look right to the left of that, those are people who are going to move through the age population, and again, they're going to retire. There's about 56,000 people statewide that are going to be short of the people to fill those jobs. So one of the implications of the baby boom, and this is Massachusetts data, as the baby boom gets older, we have a gap of people who are here now to fill those jobs. That means, and again, if the economy continues to go well, people will move. There will be in-migrants who will move into Massachusetts to take those jobs. Okay, so right now we just don't have an even labor force into the future. The bottom is the magic region. So I described Littleton, Acton, Maynard, Lexington, kind of this kind of Metro West, parallel to Route 2. You guys are older as a group, this group of towns, kind of significantly older, according to this, and have an even more of a gap in terms of proportion. Now the numbers, on the top you see it's like hundreds of thousands, that's Massachusetts as a whole, but in the magic region it's tens of thousands, or between 10 and 20,000. So it's numerically not as many people, but there is a bigger drop.
Please accept our apologies.
Oh, no problem.
Should we start with the
You did miss the fun slide, which well, we might have to go back to that.
Yeah,
all right.
We can watch it later tonight.
Yeah. So, as you can see, so again, the demographics that I've just gone through are not only about what kind of housing that we need, it's also about who makes up the labor force, what's going to happen with the labor force, do we have enough people to meet the labor demands? If we don't have enough people, those people have to move into our state. So businesses are very aware of how, so now I'm going to kind of flip back to housing for a minute. Businesses, and I know this well from working in Westford, when businesses would come into town and they'd say, okay, well, what's the average sale price of the house? And they'd really want to know. And okay, well, that might be, and the median sale price might be fine for some of their workers, but not all of their workers. And so they really wanted to get a sense of what was, going to be affordable to their workforce. These companies, and this is a photograph of Governor Baker promoting his legislation, which I'll talk about in a little bit, called an Act to Promote Housing Choices. Yeah, Keith is here all the time, but yeah, I don't think he was part of these businesses. So this is the Boston Medical Center, John Hancock, iBoss, McKinsey, Rockland Trust, Southwark Chamber, lots of very big businesses and business organizations. They all or make it very clear that housing and high housing costs are really a problem. And again, when we talk about people needing to move into Massachusetts to fill workforce vacancies that we can see that are coming, anecdotally, I heard a story from one of the South Shore banks that talked about somebody who had accepted a $100,000 a year job, a nice white-collar bank manager, and they were moving from Cincinnati. And they accepted the job, and they came here, and they with their family, and they looked around at the housing, and they gave them a very nice note and said, "Thank you very much. I rescind my offer. I rescind my acceptance. I can no way afford housing in this area to the level that I have in Cincinnati. It's that different." So that's an example of how important it is. So, this is the question that we have. Do we have the housing stock that we need? Do we have the amount of housing stock? And do we have the housing stock that's going to meet the needs of our changing population? We're going to have more seniors. We have the millennials. The lower left picture is my son. Now that's about 10 years ago. He's not so cute anymore. That's his elementary school teacher with him. She absolutely could not afford to rent or buy a house in the town in which I live and where she taught for many, many years. And obviously making this child very, very happy. But she, as a millennial, there's no way. And I'd like to make these kind of real. The lovely elder stateswoman in the red with the green Christmassy look is my mom. She lived to be 94. She's one of that group that's in that, much older than 80, than 75, and she lived, and she lived a great life. She happened to live with us, which worked well, but that's a unique circumstance, So we have people who are going to live well into their 90s, and they're going to have some different housing needs than generations had before. Okay. So now I'm going to take a look. So this is we're trying to answer the question. Okay, well, does this magic subregion, does this area have the housing that you need? And so let's look at your demographics. Remember the chart we had about the labor force, where you could clearly see you trend older. This is just about age. And this, your subregion here is shown in blue, and the state age profile is in the yellow dashes. So you definitely have much fewer younger folks, and these are kind of young families, and kind of 20. Really the millennials. There are not a lot of millennials in the Magic subregion, and people tend to be older. Okay. Again, so you're going to have this presentation as a PDF. I think Maren already posted it on your website. She's very efficient. So if you can't see all of the details, you'll have a chance to be able to look at it more carefully. This is all the towns that are in the Magic subregion, and this is looking at age. And so this is just a different way to picture that age. That the bar graph was one thing. This is organized by median age, so youngest to oldest. Lincoln having the youngest, Carlisle the oldest, median age. Just to give you a sense, the statewide median age is 39 and a half. So you're already over the state median age. I really like this kind of demonstration because you get a sense. You've got these two lines that show 25 to 65. That's kind of our active producing years. Hopefully we're working when we're 20, we're working during these 40 years. Maybe we're having families. And you can see this kind of gap. The millennials, that's that valley. You don't have that. You don't have a lot of those, but you do have more older folks. And as you can see from this, all of these towns, and these are your residents, not your employees, but your residents, you're going to be having a big lot of folks moving into retirement soon. While I'm kind of bragging about how cool these graphics are, because I think data is really important to understand, I need to make a shout out to the folks that did it, because I didn't do this fancy data. And then you'll see the logo on the side, the Mass Housing Partnership, NHP, Center for Housing Data. These are folks that actually, this is what they do. They prepare data, and they provide it, and they examine it, and they analyze it, but they also make it so that it can tell a story, because that's pretty important. Okay. So again, this is your subregion by town, looking at rental housing. So this is home ownership is in black and rental is in yellow. The state is at the top, so it's about 2/3 home ownership and a little bit more than a third rental. The Magic subregion has less of that. Lincoln, Maynard, Boxborough have more rental housing, and Littleton is, kind of towards the bottom quarter with 16% of rental housing. Why is rental housing important? Rental housing is one of the ways that younger families can enter into a market because you don't need a down payment, you just don't need as much capital to enter in. Okay. Also taking a look at your single-family home, at the types of housing products that are here. So again, state is at the top, your subregion as a whole is under that, and then individually by town. And again, this is very similar to, I do these presentations for kind of regions or subregions around the state. You're not atypical here in that predominantly many towns have very little multifamily at all, very little townhouse development, very little apartment development. Again, Littleton is kind of in that bottom quartile with Boxborough with its new development, and Maynard. Maynard has kind of more of that mid-range, the 1-2 family, 3 and 4 and 5 to 9, and Bedford and Acton more multifamily, that's larger projects. Okay. So this is where it gets pretty real. So this is looking again at the Magic subregion. So this is all of those towns together. And it's looking at affordability. On the left is home ownership, and on the right is renter households. So, and this brings up some new terms. It talks about being burdened by housing costs. And so your household is considered burdened by housing costs if you're spending more than 30% of your income. You guys all remember when you got a mortgage, it kind of said, oh yeah, 30% is a good amount to spend. So if you're spending more than 30%, you're burdened. Which is shown in yellow here. If you're severely burdened, you're spending 50% or more, and that's shown in the darker orange color or darker red. So as you can see, and this is organized by income, and so even people making over $100,000 for home ownership are burdened with their housing costs. That should be, that's a red flag. These are people who are making a very good salary in terms of household income. And then for renters, again, people obviously with lower incomes have more burden, but even people, in these kind of middle and upper middle income brackets are still burdened and severely burdened by their housing costs, and that's indicating a problem. Okay. Alrighty, so this is my brave slide. This is the one that I'm just, don't shoot me. But I want to talk a little bit about school enrollment and how it relates to housing. Because as I know well from being a community development director in Westford, as well as a consultant in other places, this is a very sensitive issue. And I will say right off the bat, this is very nuanced, and the details of every individual town are very important. But I like to show this slide because, for one, it's showing the changes in enrollment over the last 10 years. And just if you look across the state, the brown and the tan are declining enrollments. So you're not in that, but Westford, for example, is declining. Its enrollment is declining over the last 10 years. And one of the reasons I show this is because I think people may not realize that enrollments generally should decline. Remember those graphs that I showed you? We started with the demographics. In general, there are fewer kids, and enrollment as you look into the future, enrollments will decline. And I show this to kind of just make sure people are thinking about, okay, well, maybe my community is declining. Maybe my school committee is actually thinking about which elementary schools they might consolidate. Not sure. I don't know exactly what's happening here in Littleton. You guys seem like you do have a high growth, so that's not necessarily going to be what your school committee is thinking about right now. If you're interested in this topic, the Regional Planning Agency, MAPC, did a really good booklet called The Waning Influence of Housing Production and Public School Enrollment. It's only 9 pages, so I really recommend it. It's on their website, and it takes a look at the communities in their region, which you are one, And it does an analysis to say, okay, well, is school enrollment happening because of new housing? Or is school enrollment happening for other reasons? Like, you have a really good school system, you may not be building a lot of housing, but people are moving into they're buying a single family house that somebody else moved out of that didn't have kids, and they're bringing new kids into the school system. So is that because of existing housing stock, or is it new enrollment? And their analysis is very interesting. And they do find that there are communities, let's take some more inner communities like Lexington and Concord, they're not building a lot of new housing, yet they have very steep enrollment increases. So it's not related. It's just, they're not related. There are other reasons that the school enrollment is increasing. They did find in a couple communities, Chelsea, Everett, they have very high, they're building a lot of apartment units, and they're getting a lot of young families. And so for some communities, they found that there was a relationship. Like I said, it's very nuanced, and it is different for every town and every city, but I like to just at least alert people that it may not be exactly what you think it is. It may not be what you hear in public hearings. It may not always be tied that new housing is going to bring a huge impact to your school system. All right, let's see. I do have some good news. It's not all gloom and doom. Let's go to the next slide. So first of all, the Baker-Polito administration, starting at the state, has been doing a lot to promote housing. They've increased the Mass Works, which is a big pot of money for infrastructure, and they've added housing as a benefit to that, and that's produced over 3,000 units of housing across the state. There's an initiative to take state-owned properties and work with local governments to convert those into productive use as long as they're not being used. So for example, like Westboro State Hospital is being converted into 700 housing units in Westboro. And there's a lot of other things that the state and the administration is doing to help promote housing, for the most part, adding money to funds that actually pay for housing to be built. Regional governments, not only MAPC, but other regional governments are doing good things. There is a concept called age-friendly communities, which AARP is getting involved in. AARP is getting active in local policy matters, and they are promoting what they call communities that are good for 8 to 80. So 8-year-olds can't drive, and 8-year-olds maybe shouldn't drive, or you're starting to think about maybe should I drive. So you need good sidewalks, you might need housing that's close to stores. You need kind of an age-friendly community. So that's something that's being pushed. And that does actually relate specifically to housing and the right kinds of housing products. Other local governments are doing great things. Littleton. So this is a slide that I show all around the state, and you guys are right there. Your town meeting from last fall where you adopted the housing trust, your senior residential overlay, are things to be applauded. That's great local action that you have done. Other towns are also doing this. Needham is recognizing they had a big new employer, TripAdvisor, come in and said, our employees can't get housing. What can you do about that? And so they've upzoned some property, some office park property, to add for new housing. Other communities are banding together and sharing housing resources. So they're taking some CPA monies and they're spending, on a proportionate basis, $20,000, $25,000 a year to hire experts to help augment planning staff. And again, I can say this from the town next door, that you barely have enough time to really deal with what's in front of you on your plate, to strategize and think about and track. There's a lot of detailed tracking that has to do with the housing and the subsidized housing inventory, and processing 40Bs and processing. There's a lot of really technical stuff. So having shared resources is a great way for towns to efficiently get good advice. I had to, of course, have Westford, who's donated some land and done lots of things for housing. In the town of Chelmsford, they took, they wanted to be proactive to get more, to achieve higher than 10% of their subsidized housing inventory. And so they noticed that their office parks were kind of languishing. The office market in the suburbs has been very, very slow. And so they added residential into their office parks and added it at a pretty high density. And said, okay, all right, developers, come, we want to do some mixed use here, and we're going to put housing next to jobs. And so that's part of what they've done. And that's kind of what I would call an alternative to 40B. It required affordability, but it also had high density. And then even towns to the west, Fitchburg, Lunenburg, Gardner, they're all doing things to help develop housing. Go ahead. So I'm going to switch now and talk about the program that I run, which is part of one of the things that the bigger Polito administration has done. It's called the Housing Choice Initiative. It was announced by the governor in December. I can happily let you know that your proactive town administrator submitted the very first application to be designated as a housing choice community. So it's a designation, kind of like the green communities and like complete streets. If you meet certain
The Board of
criteria.
Selectmen promptly took an authorizing vote last December, and when Chris opened up the round in January, we got ours enforced.
I have a friend who likes to register first for conferences, and he's known as must be first, and I think Keith gets the must be first. Community compact, housing choice designation, Keith must be first. So I'm going to talk about all of these elements that are part of the Housing Choice Initiative. So, and I should actually say the designation process has come to a close. It was open from basically about February 1st to the end of April, and we'll be making announcements about the designations in shortly.
It was announced today on May 14th.
Good. Okay, good. Now I can say we will make an announcement on May 14th.
I have the Lieutenant Governor's schedule, and we should be there.
Good.
So.
Yes, all the applicants are invited to attend at that announcement. So what but the designation criteria looked back in the last 5 years and said to cities and towns across Massachusetts, we would like to provide some rewards to towns that are actually building housing. And so we looked at a couple different criteria. One would be 5% increase in the last 5 years from your 2010 housing stock, or 500 units. So you can imagine for Littleton, maybe 5% was easy to get, but for a very large city, we needed an absolute number, so we used 500. So we call this the high production category is 5% or 500 units. And some communities don't have that much growth, but they're doing a lot of good things. So we have a production and planning category, which is you grew by 3% or 300 units, and then we added some best practices into that. And you could qualify under that. And it's exactly the same designation, but kind of two different paths to get there. We had some requirements for a community compact. You can't have any kind of housing restrictions or moratoriums on housing. That's kind of the opposite of housing production. So those were kind of very specific things. And once towns are designated, that designation is going to last for 2 years. So, okay, Maureen, so you say, well, okay. Sorry. No, it's okay. Can you go 2 slides down? So you say, well, I got a housing choice designation. What does that mean? I have money. I have a new capital grants program that will be open to the housing choice communities, and will be on May 14th. We will tell you exactly when that grant round is going to open up. And so this is exclusively for the communities that are going to qualify as housing choice communities. It's a fairly open and flexible source of grant monies, other than it's capital. It looks to your town to say whatever you guys say is capital will be capital as long as it's legal. And the attorneys maybe write about 4 pages of definition of what a capital expenditure is, but it's whatever you say. So that, and I have fiscal year 19 monies. I will have to say we do need the legislature to do the right thing. And so we have, hopefully we'll have almost $8 million, but we need the legislature to, again, do the right thing and approve those budgets. So that'll be fiscal year 19 monies. And so in part, this is kind of coming, like if you're a housing choice community, that's going to be great. You've already done your capital budgeting, you've already done your town meeting, all of a sudden, boom, you have a new capital project that you hopefully are thinking about, Keith, about what you might submit. Okay, Maureen, if you could go back up. So that's the kind of why would I do this? It's because there's money. These are the best practices that we identified, that if you were in that lower category, that you have to have 4 out of these 9 categories. So this includes things like having an affordable housing trust, designating CPA monies and spending your CPA monies for housing projects, having a community compact that says we want to focus on housing. Achieving 10%. I think you guys checked that box. If you have zoning that allows certain development types by right, if you allow accessory dwelling units by right, if you allow multifamily, if you have a 40R smart growth district, if you have a certified housing production plan. Okay? So those are the best practices. And if you're, let's just say Littleton wasn't the superstar that it is, and you didn't apply for housing choice, but you kind of wanted to know what can we do to get more production, I would point you to those best practices, which is get the zoning in place, get the infrastructure in place, like an affordable housing trust or CPA funds. Get a, if you don't have CPA, get CPA established in your town. So you're setting the table so that when the development is ready and when the market is ready, you have the right elements in place. You've set the table, and then developers can come in and actually do the building. Let's go right back up. Sorry. It's okay. So this map shows towns that are under 7,000 population. That's 133 towns. 6% of the state's population. So many, many towns, not a lot of people. And it is mostly in the west, as you can see. So, and especially west of Worcester County, there really isn't a lot of demand for housing. In fact, some of these places are losing population. They have economic development problems. Don't have the same kind of engine that eastern half of Massachusetts has. So kind of recognizing that, we've established another fund that will fund capital projects for those towns. We'll prioritize capital projects that are related to housing, but we'll also do fund projects that will do spur economic development in those. So again, not necessarily applied to you guys, but we want to recognize that the state's not equal all the way across. The other advantage of being a housing choice community is you get some bonus points for 9 state capital grants. I don't know that this is going to, make or break an application, but it will help. So it's, again, the Baker-Plewitt administration wants to work with communities. It does not see putting mandates on communities and telling them that it has to do certain things. It wants to reward communities that are doing the right thing and provide incentives. And this is just another piece of those incentives. So you can't read all those, but they're, again, once you get the PDF, it includes mass works, complete streets, the land grants, so a whole variety, 9 different capital grants. So when I'm not going around talking to folks like you and designating my communities and having events with the governor and lieutenant governor, I am doing other things behind the scenes. One of the things that's been pointed out by many folks is that state agencies and quasi-state agencies don't always know who's doing what. I know, big surprise from somebody like, I was like, I knew you didn't know. From the local perspective, you kind of get bounced around sometimes when you're looking for funds and you're looking for monies to do certain things. And so part of my job, and I give the state credit for hiring somebody from local government, my job is to help promote what technical assistance and grants there are, especially related to housing and planning. And towards that end, I'm creating a large database and coordinating with not only these state agencies and quasi-state agencies, but even some non-governmental organizations that are doing policy work out in communities. And so that's a big effort. It's not that sexy, but I think you can appreciate how important it is to kind of have better access to knowing where the grant funds are. Another piece of the housing choice package that comes is a special grant program which has closed. It's by Mass Housing, which is a quasi-public agency called Planning for Production. Keith, did you guys, and Martin, you apply for this? Oh, awesome, great. So they have not made that announcement yet, but the idea is to look, they were encouraging projects and proposals from communities who've done some planning work and are now ready to implement that planning. Whether it's you have a site that you want some engineering work on, or you're ready to do more zoning and put another zoning piece in place. I'm not sure. What did you guys apply for?
We applied, the grant request was $115,000 for detailed area planning around the commuter rail station. We have the master plan that says you need to look at, we should look at development in that area and what would be possible.
So these are pretty big grants. The state doesn't, I mean, a lot of planning grants are like $25,000, right? I mean, so the Mass Housing put out, it's a $2 million fund, and they're looking to have really deep grant commitments to local governments, and maybe even go over more than 1 year in terms of planning. So that's part of kind of coordinated with my program. And then one of the last things that the governor did is he's also set a target. He'd like to see 135,000 new housing units by 2025. That's about 17,000 a year. So remember when I started, we're doing about 15. So it's not even increasing that much beyond what we're doing now, but we'd like to see that continuously every year. Another piece of the really nitty-gritty of that is tracking it and how we track housing units and how we track how every local government tracks housing units. I know from my designation process, because I required building permit information, that there's a lot of improvement that local towns and cities, including some very large cities, don't do a good job at. So I'll be working to help folks do that better. And lastly, I want to talk about the governor's legislation. And if this does grab you, I would absolutely encourage you to reach out to your legislators and encourage them to look at this legislation. So one of the things that probably most of the folks in this room know is zoning is very hard to change. Some people think that's a good thing, but if you want to improve your zoning, or you want to do zoning to address problems that you're seeing, like we need more different kinds of housing stock, and we don't have, our zoning really doesn't allow that. Massachusetts requires a 2/3 or a supermajority. This map shows Massachusetts in red and the rest of the states in red that have a supermajority requirement. You can tell Massachusetts is not like these other states, right? I mean, not only are we the only state in New England, but we just don't have a lot in common with these middle, very large states in the middle of the country. And this is your community right to the west. This is Kelly's Corners. You guys may have heard about some of this. In Acton, they did an extensive planning process. They wanted to do a smart growth overlay district at Kelly's Corner in that tired commercial shopping center. They had willing property owners. They had Route 119 and 27 were just about to undergo transportation improvements. Those have now been done. The bike path is coming right through this area. They had charrettes, they had planning, the planning board and the selectmen all were supportive, and they had 19 votes short in their town meeting to pass upzoning for this area. It's 62% in favor. And so it just shows that even good zoning, good planning, it's complicated. And I totally admit that good zoning can be very complicated, but it can be very frustrating when you have kind of a good process and you have a lot of community support and you can't pass it. So the governor's legislation says if you want to do zoning amendments that are going to increase housing production, instead of needing that 2/3 majority, you would only need a simple majority. So if you were going to change your zoning, for example, to change your dimensional standards, to go from an acre zoning to half-acre zoning, that would be seen as something that would increase production of housing. That would require a simple majority instead of 2/3. If you were doing something like the Kelly's Corner Smart Growth Overlay District, that would require just a 2/3. Just a simple majority. Other things, reducing parking requirements, that kind of thing, simple majority. This would actually change the State Zoning Act, which is called Chapter 40A. It's not an opt-in, it would just change the law, and so for these kinds of zoning amendments, you would need a simple majority.
Yeah, that's where I'm moving.
Can you go back one second?
Sorry.
It was filed, it went through the Joint Committee on Housing, and it is now House 4290, and it is sitting in Ways and Means. And as soon as the budget process is over in the State House, we hope that they will take this up. It's a little out of everybody's control what the legislature does, but we hope to see it taken up before the session ends. Okay. And I appreciate you sitting through my presentation. This is just a snapshot of where we are. On May 14th, we're going to be having an announcement about Housing Choice Communities, which you guys are welcome to attend. with the Lieutenant Governor. We'll be opening up that grant, both of the grant programs that I talked about. I'm also coordinating with all those other state grant managers who are running the Complete Streets and running all those to make sure they know who's a housing choice community. And then the grants will be announced as early as we can, but probably September for those fiscal year 19 grants. And I'm totally welcome to take, I have talked for way too long, so I'm happy to take any of your questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for coming, Chris. I really appreciate it. Folks, any questions, by all means, I want to thank you. I know I saw this presentation once before, so I thought it'd be beneficial for members of our other boards and my board to see it. So
Thank you.
thank you for the information. I'll open the floor to questions if anybody's.
Just a comment. Thank you for inviting us out
All right.
to sit through this presentation. Learned a lot here tonight. And concerned about overdevelopment with housing. I mentioned that before. It's great to get grants and to be able to buy things like fire trucks and shiny new ambulances, but I'm worried about the long-term economic impact. Put a lot of housing in, put a lot of students in the school system. What does that mean? And we need to make sure that when we're going down this road with housing, we've got a strong push with the commercial industrial growth as well, because if we don't balance that, we're going to get too top-heavy with housing, and then we're going to end up with much higher residential property taxes.
If I could just make share a comment and then just make an observation. First, I did have the microphone that invented the State House this afternoon. Got to stand next to the governor, and I did thank him for recognizing Littleton's work at the Housing Choice launch event in December, and reported to him that we had filed the first application, of which he certainly knew, and so we're certainly in line for Housing Choice. Even if Chris can't say it, I'll say we're in line for Housing Choice designation. Now, what that gets us, what that does is it recognizes what we have already done. Not to be cynical about it, but we have met the criteria of increasing the housing stock by at least 5% over the last 5 years. That entitles us to go after the money. In and of itself, it does not require us to build housing in order to get the money. Although, in order to be recertified 2 years from now, we'd have to take a look back and see, are we still increasing by either 3 or 5%? Because those best practices that are optional, if you're not at 5 but you're at 3%, we've already done at least half a dozen of those. So really the issue is it's reward time that for what the town has done, and frankly half of the housing that we created in this town in the last decade was at one location, 15 Gray Road. So we had 400 units and 200 of them were in one location. So there is money that we can and that we should go after in recognition of that which we've achieved. And if we do nothing else, let's take full advantage of that.
Thank you, Mr.
Keith makes a good point that I should emphasize. There really are no, that's a question I get often, which is, what are the strings? Okay, if I'm a housing choice community, what are you going to make me do? And if you meet the criteria, you're in. That's it. It'll last for 2 years. That gives you 2 grant cycles to apply for, so I'll open up the grants next year. There's this year and then next year, but you don't have to do anything else. You've already done it. So it's actually a little kind of easier than green communities, a little bit easier than the Complete Streets. You don't have to pass a policy. You don't have to do other things. So thank you for making that point, Keith.
Excellent.
Actually,
Yeah, so thank you very much for coming. I appreciate the Finance Committee, the Select Board for attending. Really appreciate seeing you all here. Thank you. Mr. Guthrie, by me.
Any indication where the House and Senate
Just
is?
for the record.
Sorry, David Guthrie. Any indication where the House and Senate is on 48?
On the governor's bill. So it was passed on the Joint Committee on Housing, so that's a House and Senate committee, 12-1. They made a minor change to it and reorganized it, but that's about it. So it was very, very positively approved there. My sense is that The Senate is waiting for the House to vote on something, and then they will kind of go forward. The Senate President, who's going to be Senate President through essentially most of the rest of the session, is Harriet Chandler. She is a champion of housing from the Worcester area, so I know this is something that she's very interested in. So we're waiting really on the House and the leadership in the House to take this up. So I don't have any more insight. If I did, I would let you know.
Yeah, follow-up to that, is there any discussion relative to, by right zoning is 3-to-1, special permit is 4-to-1. It's one thing to get something rezoned, but is there any discussion of bringing that special permit component back to 3 votes versus 4?
Yes, in fact, one of the major kind of policy amendment that the Joint Committee made is they added a provision for a permit granting body, the SPGA in the formal terms, when it's looking at special permits to go to a simple majority as well, but only in certain circumstances. If you're within a half a mile of rapid transit, so like your transit station, and you have a project that has at least 10% of affordable housing. So if a project existed that met those criteria, in the bill now includes language, it was not the governor's proposal, but now includes language for the kind of certain circumstances to go to a simple majority at the permit board level, which is a good question.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Long, Planning Board, thank you very much for inviting us. Chris, thank you for coming out.
You're welcome.
We will try to button up some of the stuff for the warrant for Monday. But
I appreciate you guys have lots to do. Great to see you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all that you're doing.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Zeldin.
It's hard to break the cycle, but given the high cost of land and the relatively high cost of materials, and I have to look at labor in this part of the country, I'm just making the assumption this is part of the problem for housing. What is it that the Commonwealth can do to, as it were, break into the market, if you understand?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I mean, again, the agency I work for, DHCD, does, they have lots of money that they give towards rental projects, they give to developers, and so that's one way that they help on the financing end. I talked briefly about the open for business process, which is state-owned land. The state is a very large property owner throughout the entire Commonwealth. And so they have a very good person who's organizing and dogging all of those projects all around the Commonwealth, working with towns and cities to transfer ownership, let's say, to the town or to a city, who then might, put out an RFP to develop something with housing, for example. So one major way that governments in general can help the market issue is by donating or deeply discounting land for development of housing. So whether towns do that with their own town land, or whether the state does it with its land. Other than those, I'm not so sure I have a lot of answer for that. There is some interesting data about about construction costs and frankly land value, which is in part because of the constrained supply. That is, there's a big demand, and so the market just reacts to that. Land value is really one of the things that I think has really impacted the construction costs. Labor costs are a big chunk of housing costs, but they haven't changed. As far as my understanding of the data, they haven't changed as markedly as land costs, and land costs have gone up steeply across, again, mostly in eastern Massachusetts. So, but towns and either purchasing land, whether you get it for a right of first refusal on a Chapter 61 property, or however it is that you could pick up property, purchasing it for the intention of using it for housing is a major way that you could do that, or land that you already own, disposing of the land.
All right. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
you coming out.
It's great to be here. Nice
Yeah.
to see you. Good luck.
Peter. Just can I get my sticker? Thank you.
Oh, you're
really
very
appreciate it.
welcome. You're really
Thank you.
welcome. Yeah.
It's great.
Good. The last slide was all of that, how you contact me and the website. So check that out if you want some more follow-up.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda item, 7:15, is the Baker House, 12 Robinson Road, CPA funding request at town meeting. Do we have somebody from CPC?
Oh, we do.
Who?
It's me.
All right. What are we looking at?
They're looking at definitely promoting the purchase of the 12 Robinson Road with CPC funds. Now, Keith came out with a letter yesterday that basically says, from Harrington, from the town council, that basically says if we buy it with CPC funds, the town has to maintain it for the rest of the time. Now, we talked about that a little bit upstairs, and I see that as just the same as any building the town buys and owns. There's a historical aspect to it. The historical aspect is only for the exterior. There were points that we talked about at the CPC meeting were using it for housing, splitting it up into 2 apartments or a single apartment, selling it, and or turning it into some town use, like for museum or for town offices. The suggestion was made that if it's got so much land with it, it's almost an acre, that the back side of that could be used for parking for town center, or for if the sewering goes through, there's a great location for putting some of the sewer infrastructure. Most of that's underground anyway, so that would be in the back. But it's a ideal location, right in the middle of the district that we're looking at sewering.
Okay.
So lots of positives. With use of CPC funds, we have that restriction, but without the if we didn't use the CPC funds, we wouldn't have that restriction. We could do whatever we wanted with it. Either way, it looks they're going to promote buying it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, question for you, or maybe anybody, if we purchase it, we have to deed restrict it as a town, right, because it's a historic structure and we use CPC
That's
funds.
right, that's right.
It gets a deed restriction on it.
But it's only the exterior appearance that needs to be, the historic aspect controls.
On that deed restriction, I want to make sure that beam that says 16 something on it also is protected.
Yeah, well, that's inside.
Yeah. But if we're only protecting the exterior, I want to make sure that the features on the interior also protected.
We don't want to go too far into the interior because because if we're gonna fix it up, we may have to modify some of the things. It's probably got lead paint. If we make 2 apartments out of it, definitely change around the inside. So
right.
We want to just stick with the historic aspect for the exterior for now.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. For the record.
Rachel Robinson, 181 Mill Road. So I'm here to present on behalf of the Baker House 1673 Trust. Would it be better if I stood over there?
Sure, absolutely.
So I am on the Historical Commission and Conservation Commission. I came to this project through the Historical Commission. The house at 12 Robinson Road is up for sale by the owners. It has been on the market for a few years. But recently there was some concern that it was going to be purchased by most likely a bank and leveled and made into a parking lot. The house has commonly been dated to 1673. There is a beam in the attic that says built in 1673 by SP. And that is what the placard on the front of the house says. We did recently have a historical architect go through the house. She believes that the house is more the 1700s and that the interior might have been reused, and so that, fortunately, the beam might have been from an earlier structure. So we get into a little bit of philosophical, does that really mean the house is later? I mean, we can could argue some points here. The Constitution is really only about this much of the original Constitution. Does it still mean that it's not the real thing? But most likely the house has been on that property since the 1700s. Still an important feature of the town, still a great historical asset to the town, and its proximity to the Littleton Common would really enhance what this particular vision for the house is. When we saw the house and we decided that we wanted to try to do something to preserve it, so we created the Baker House, or Baker Preservation Trust, 1673 Preservation Trust. Again, this is the beam that's in the attic. So most likely, unless somebody went up there and carved that in later on, it most likely came from an earlier structure. But the house, the mission of the trust is still to preserve the house and have it be used for town use, have it be created into a museum and an art gallery and education space, and then also use the back as event space. There's a small building in the back with a forge that we could use as maker space, rent it out to artists, and a place for them to come and have gallery space or workspace. So again, the vision is it would be a multi-use, multi-spaced historical cultural landmark for Littleton. There is ample space in the back. The acreage is 0.84 acres, and it's relatively flat. It's zoned commercially, so we can have events, functions, and such like that in the back. As well, the barn is sizable to have classes, have it be, a juried gallery space for the community, and have it be a space that people can come and have events, meetings, and small parties. So we understand this would be a multi-stage process. Immediately after purchase of the property, which is on the warrant, town can vote to save it or not. So the immediate step would be further deterioration. That would be up to the town. That would be under the town's jurisdiction. And then the town would own it. Would be under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen. Most likely it will have to go out to an RFP process for any of the number of ideas that Richard mentioned. So again, this is just one vision that we would have that we would put forward. So design out the space, build out a garden, and then so if this all happens and we get the RFP and we go forward, the next phase would be to build out the garden, build out the well, which get into that, build out the gallery, build out the museum, the forge, and then hopefully hook up to the sewer as well. So the main features of the property. So this is the house. It's 4 rooms and a kitchen, so I guess 5 rooms. But it's not terribly large. So there wouldn't be a lot to do inside the house. And again, trying to keep the historical aesthetic would really mean going in, maybe painting a bit, get colors back to historical colors, cleaning it up. But really there wouldn't be a lot of demolition. There wouldn't be a lot of taking down walls, keeping it relatively as is. Maybe put in a lift for disability, so access for everyone. The hearth, we thought, nice hearth, have some cooking classes there. So just really thinking about the different colonial aspects that, used for education. Colonial America is obviously a big part of the curriculum with schools. So having school groups coming in, learning about culture in their town would be, learning about American history in their town would be a really great asset. So again, going over again. So then the barn. This is from the outside. These are some wonderful horse hoops that are in there. So the barn's relatively open on the inside and bare. It's not built out or anything. So we would want to put up walls and have it be built into 2 stories, and have the downstairs be open space that there can be art up on the walls all the way around, and then have the interior be education space, and again, places for events, parties, and such, and then have the offices in the second floor upstairs. So it's original post and beam construction. Again, it's pretty open, but it would be a flexible space that would be available, revenue generating, and a good space for community. So this is the well. This is a little breezeway between between the house and the barn. There's a well inside underneath the floor beams. There's also a larger well outside, but it's overgrown, so we would have to see about uncovering that. But this would be an interior well. And this would be the place for the gift shop and a cafe. So a place, this again, obviously revenue stream, and a place that people could come and get a cup of coffee. We have to see about food in the future, but certainly coffee, tea, lemonade. Come in, get something to drink, and then be able to go outside and enjoy the property, have some nice gardens built outside, and that you could go and sit, and again, space that, even if there's not something going on, you could go and enjoy yourself. So this is the outside. This is the back of the house, and as you can see, it's relatively flat. Have the gardens and the property, hopefully more in the back. It's owned commercially. Next to it is a dentist. On the other side is residential. They would like, we've spoken to the neighbors, they would like at least a large fence put up, which is certainly possible. And then behind is, I believe, a doctor's office. So we would hopefully talk to them about working out some parking, see what we can do. Again, we don't want to have a lot of parking on the property because the property space could be used for many more things than just cars. But there would be handicap accessible spots out in the front. So some considerations, obviously parking is a big thing, we do know that. So how do we work within the town? How do we try to get parking from the commons? How do we work that out? So the boundaries, setting up fences. We want to make sure sound pollution. Again, the neighbors were a little bit concerned if there were large parties, what that would do. Light pollution. Security would be obviously a large issue with it being a museum and having merchandise in there. The septic is workable right now. It passed Title V. Everyone seems very concerned about that, and we're not really certain why. But obviously, we would like to hook up to the sewage system whenever that actually comes through. So that would be more ideal for us anyways. So we understand that obviously there are significant tasks ahead. Obviously the immediate is getting the house secured up. There are some leaks. We just had the inspector go through the house, and there are some shoring up, and mostly the house is in fairly good condition considering, but there are obvious things that need to be done right away. And then kind of going through and making it into what the purposes would be that we have envisioned. So the next steps, so we have a lot of official support. We've obviously been in front of CPC, and they have, we brought this project to them, and they have voted purely for the purchase of the project. They have not voted necessarily that we would be the owners of the property. But we have been in front of Historical Commission. They voted to support the project. Cultural Council voted to support. The MPIC voted to support, and the Board of Selectmen have voted in favor of purchasing the property. And then we're trying to get up a lot more community support as well, because this will be a large community venture. Getting everyone to come together. Hopefully, we want to make sure that everyone wants to use the space, that everyone, feels like this is a part of the town, that it's open space that everyone can use. In the town master plan, this type of entity was actually focused on by some of the consultants that were interviewed. They said that to revitalize the common, there will be a need for some type of thing that will bring people into the town, and that probably a cultural center, so something with the arts, and obviously history is typically a big pull for a lot of visitors. And then we'll be trying to fundraise for startup costs and everything. And so ideally for the trust, we would like to be a self-sustained entity that would be running the property, managing it, keeping it up and in good state. So some other long-term goals for the property would be to, so this is the forge out in the back. We'd like to turn that into makerspace. Obviously it's a little derelict. It was a forge by the previous owner. He had it up and running, so it's not currently now, but we could hopefully get it up and get some spaces put in there for artists. They could rent them out by the month, the week, however, and again, a good revenue stream. There is a art space in Maynard, and when I was speaking to one of the owners or managers there, they have a wait list of artists that are looking for space to rent out. So we know that there is a demand for that right now. Some classes can be taught back there as well. So programming for colonial techniques of pottery and glassblowing, blacksmithing, and things like that. So. And then, so this is the Long Store. This is the oldest mercantile building in Littleton. Currently, it is in a storage container. It was moved when the Point came in and deconstructed. And it just sits in a storage container, very sadly. And we would like to, if it's possible, to take it out and recreate it on the property. And then that would most likely become gift shop or offices. We'd figure out something. We'd like to be the gift shop because then really come full circle is another mercantile building. So what we need from the community, we have a website, bakerhouse1673.org. And we'd like everyone to go there. You can find more information on the website and come to town meeting and vote to support the purchase of the property. That's and then hopefully we'll get it, but we'll see. But that's what, ideally, we want to get the house saved, and that's the most important part, getting the property saved, the historic value of it.
Excellent. Thank you for your presentation and your time. Any comments from the board?
There was one more thing that I forgot to mention, that another option that they talked about upstairs was to buy it and then just deed it over to some nonprofit who would then take care of it from that point on, outside and inside.
Okay, thank you.
What's the purchase price?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
What's the purchase price?
What's the question again?
How much is it?
It's being sold for $250 to the town.
To the town, $250. It's on the warrant article to vote. So, any other discussion from my board? Any comments? Appreciate your time. So, I think
I would make a motion to recommend that the town purchase it.
Thank you, Richard. Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful.
All right, so the board supports the motion to purchase. All right? Thank you very much.
Good work.
We'll work on the rest later, but thank you. It's some great ideas.
Yeah, well, we're getting there.
Well, you have a volunteer in me when it's time.
Perfect.
All right.
Love it. Love it. All right. Thank you.
You can delete.
I'll just chew it off the wood. All right, 7:30 A&R Chestnut Lane, lots 12 and 13. Thank you.
Baron, how can you be so sure we're going to sign that? I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
So, the owner, Paul Gass, is here, but what you can see is they're creating one new parcel in the middle between lots 12 and 13 to be sold from 12 to 13. It pushes the house a little farther away from the wetlands and allows for construction of a septic system.
This first time I seen it, show me what they're doing.
So, 12 and 13, the breakout pieces up here, moving this. So,
Could you point this out, please? I don't know what was there and what are you trying to look to move over?
We're moving.
I know what you're gonna say, but I want you to point with your finger.
I'm not sure that I can.
Well, how do you expect me to?
either.
Give it a shot.
Where
Here's Chestnut Lane here,
is the Chestnut Lane.
Harvard Road.
We come in, this is the, okay, what's happening is we're taking about 15 feet from lot 12, which is now 12A, which is here, here, to make this lot 15 feet bigger for the, which would make it much better away from the wetlands.
This is the wetlands delineation line, so
Yeah.
we're moving this way.
That's moving it this way, right?
This is the 15 feet you're talking right here.
Yeah,
Parcel A.
yeah.
From there to there, it's coming out of, what?
Lot 12A,
All right, so pointing at this one is no meaning, it's that one there.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And how does 13 get access?
The road will come all the way up.
So it's a shared-
The common
it's a shared
driveway.
driveway.
The shared driveway will come all the way. So it'll make it, lot 12A doesn't need the extra 15 feet. The 15 feet on lot 13 is a big, has a big value because it makes a larger yard. It's wasted, and it protects the, it's
All right, so
more-
lot 12A is still 2 acres of land anyways? and-
Yeah.
And lot 13 is, where is it?
It's huge,
223,000?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's that come out to be?
but there's wetlands in it.
Right.
8 acres.
All right, so it doesn't seem to be any skin off our nose, right?
Right.
But
Right.
where's the frontage for that? They're gonna do where's the frontage for that?
Coming in here.
No, the frontage remains off of Harvard Road. They're not changing it, changing the
that-
frontage.
Right.
All right,
Down
how
down
much
to the right.
change?
Down to the right. Yeah. That's what,
50 feet right now.
I'm okay
50
with.
feet?
Yeah, I'm okay with this.
Why is it only 50 and not?
It could go down to 30, could have been 35.
Mm-hmm.
So as a reduced frontage lot.
Well, I'll be
How many
damned.
signatures do you need? 1 or 2? How many of these do you want us to sign?
If you would do two.
And I'm sorry that you've been very, very patient for 10 years. And I hope to start lot 13 next month and be finished this year. So,
Okay.
and I know it's been difficult for everyone forgetting about how bad it's been for
If
me.
we need to vote, make a motion to accept the new lot lines and sign the paper. How's that?
Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Just wait.
updated from what,
You know about that?
I'm savage. This is your last meeting.
yeah.
Somber. Not much going on. It's quiet.
Sorry.
I'm okay. Back on this is.
You know what this is? You know what this is?
You guys gotta sign.
Sign another one?
Two, sign two, you sign two.
And then these one.
Sign two, sign three.
Get one.
Put the goddamn thing in.
Peter, they want us to sign one more.
He's got two.
And
There's a third one.
the engineer record this plan at the register.
To sign all three.
Have him get your copy.
Sign all three. I signed, if it's the third one, I signed it.
You did that, right? Yeah, the other one.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Search it. Okay, 740, definitive subdivision K property, waiting for this decision. Yep. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you for your patience in participating in the presentations tonight.
Very informative. I've heard quite a bit about that program, but not her presentation.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys were here to see it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, for the record, gentlemen.
For the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates, along with Dave Guthrie, project proponent.
So we've got the wording. Sorry, we're trying to go electronic here. We're stumbling a little bit tonight.
Yep.
I don't know if you know if there's a
Right.
and then there's that we're talking about.
And the wording that's not reflected yet in the decision that's posted, the draft decision that's posted online, was the late update, town council and had proposed, and I think Mr. Guthrie had a chance to make a few comments on it. So if you would leave town council a little bit of leeway in the final wording after you go through the decision, I think it's ready to be finalized.
Okay. So I did a review when it first came out, and I've been involved in the emailing back and forth today with the edits. So the leeway that I think we should leave is the detail of the gift from Mr. Guthrie for the 5 acres, including the house and barn at the end of Grimes Lane. With that, Mr. Guthrie had stated that he would provide a foundation should the town move the structure, the house, and a septic system to be installed, but the town will be responsible for the relocation of the house. I want to make sure that's clear and on the record.
It's a septic system whether it gets moved or not. It's either in the current position, new septic, which we'll need, or if it gets moved, it gets a new septic. If it gets moved, we'll take care of the foundation as well. So
Okay.
that's the only addition, is to include the septic if it does stay where it is now. If there's no realignment, we'll install the septic
For the house as
for the
is.
affordable conveyance. Yep.
Okay. Excellent. So just leave a little bit of leeway in there in case we need to reward, because if the town needs the property for a realignment, I'm not sure.
Well, that was the issue, is how do you put a time frame on the mechanism for conveyance? And obviously, we'd love to move it tomorrow, it takes it off our tax bill, but we
Right.
understand that, you know, in order to do that, all you're doing is absorbing something you can't sell unless we put, as an affordable rather, or we can't dispose of collectively, unless we put the new septic in. To put a new septic in its current position, and then find out a year from now that it's going to move to the other side of the barn, I think would be a mistake, personally. I will commit that we'll commit to one septic system.
Right.
So it leaves it open, it leaves it on our tax base. You know, I sense that there needs to be something more than this commitment, although if we were to break that, it would question the validity of our special permit or our approval. But that being said, I think with where we are in the market, that final component to the Douglas cul-de-sac may be collateral for the board and the town, but that's really up to you.
Yeah, so I'm always a fan of getting what we can get as soon as we can get it as a town. So it would be my desire that we take that gift as soon as you are able to provide it to us. So in the conveyance of the decision tonight, we'll put that in there, and, you know, I'll let Maren with town council work out the details on how you guys convey that to us. With the understanding that there's one septic system, a foundation if it needs to be relocated, or a septic system if the house stays in its current location. We've gone back and forth on this for quite some time, and you've been in front of us for a while. Is there any other discussion from the board? I think we've all read the decision. Please, by all means.
If I may, the only other thing you may want to pursue, or whomever's going to pursue that relocation, is maybe it gets relocated anyway. And maybe it's in a better spot if it's on the other side of the barn, and that way it takes away the entire question whether Grimes gets relocated or not. Ends up with a new foundation, a new septic. It's probably in a better spot, a little better yard. Gives you some relief from that wetlands. It's really up to you, but if that's the case, then we can convey it and get going on our end of the deal ASAP. And then you can work on your piece to relocate.
Just click on these things.
So we'd have to find a funding mechanism for to relocate it.
Or a commitment to it. You know, even if the funding mechanism's a year away, we'll put our foundation septic in a timely fashion and convey it, but at least you'll know it's going there. You just need probably some approval from whomever decides it's okay to move it, and then you can work on the funding through your CPC to get it relocated.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comment or questions?
You mentioned the wetland as a concern. Is that because you're seeing it change with all the development taking place around it?
No, not at all. No, our ORAD hasn't changed. What I'm suggesting is that the yard is larger on the other side of the barn than it is currently. So once we get into that septic system, which would probably, it'll be under a repair, so there's some leeway in Title V relative to the proximity of wetlands. On the other side, that discussion's over. That was my point there. The wetlands aren't changing at all, no.
So you think it'd be best on the other side? Is that it?
I'm suggesting it answers a lot of questions,
Yeah.
right? It gets your septic repair away from the wetlands, and it gets that question of when it's being moved or when it's being conveyed
Yeah,
off the table.
I think moving it over also gives a lot more options for that corner.
You end up with a new foundation, but again, I think we have to be sensitive to the historic board. It's going to want some input on its relocation, because it is altering some historical significance in that particular case. So I think you'd have to yield to them for at least their input, and whomever else may be involved.
Yeah.
But just a suggestion that if you do want to sort of be able to put a timeline on the conveyance, that's one mechanism to do it.
I would absolutely recommend to move it.
I think there's also an application in with Mass DOT. I was talking to the town administrator regarding some of the work he's doing on the reconfiguration of Grimes Lane relative to Foster Street.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we do relocate it. I just don't know that we have a funding mechanism in place. So the foundation is the first step along with the new septic, and if those are provided, it gives us an incentive. So again, I would think that we would be okay with that.
It's for low-income housing, so we can tap into that fund that Keith is about to collect a check on.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do some of that legwork with Maren if I can be just sent in the right direction on whomever would decide that it's okay to move it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the
Do
offer.
we need, should we take a vote on it to recommend?
And then the other issue we have final wording on is if Grimes Lane is to be relocated for a safer distance from the railroad crossing, then Mr. Guthrie has offered property to allow that relocation and to allow additional parking at the commuter rail station.
Correct.
To be
So-
built by others.
That's in the verbiage?
It's in the verbiage now, but I like Richard's idea of taking a vote so that we can attach it to the decision to provide the foundation and the septic system in the new location.
Yeah.
Once it's surveyed and decided, and then to go after funds from the
CPC.
the housing
Oh,
choice.
the housing choice thing that is just will be coming available soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
make
Okay.
that a motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. Okay. That being said, is there any public comment? Well, Mark, I'll give you an opportunity to speak before I open up to the public.
No.
Okay. Anybody from the public who wants to speak to this? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the decision as drafted with the amendment.
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did he say no?
I said no.
To what?
To the subdivision? I wasn't in favor of the way, the second way out.
Good luck. Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure working with you.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck with everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so we're a little behind, but 7:45, continued public hearing, modify open space special permit, Cooper Farm Estates, setbacks for lot 8 and 11 through 25. So, first I want to apologize that we didn't have a full quorum last time you guys were here. Again, we have one, but we have still some unfortunate news for you. So, Marin's going to tell me how this works, because this has never happened to me before.
Well, I'll muddle through it with you.
Okay, so in order for Jamie to participate in the vote, she needed to Mullinize herself by watching the video. That didn't occur. She has not seen the meeting, the last meeting, so she's not able to participate in the vote tonight. So I understand there's a rule of necessity that we can apply to this situation where a member who has recused himself can now participate by Mullinizing himself. Is that?
Right, it's not through the Mullen process. Mr. Scott was here at the hearing the first time, so doesn't have to do the Mullinizing process. Just has to agree to sit, and the applicant would have to weigh in on whether they want him to sit on the board.
So,
And if
I have
I
to have-
may
I have-
offer to the board, it's a very simple request that we're making. I'm happy to represent it very quickly for the benefit of whomever is available to vote tonight, and I think you will have all information that you need to make a decision. So just whatever is most convenient for the board, I just want to offer that up as well.
okay, so we could go through the presentation again, and then everybody would be brought up to speed on it. We have 5 members. We could go down to 4 if Mr. Scott decided to continue to recuse himself, or he could participate if he so chose and you so chose to allow it. So that's
The
kind of.
decision to be made is whether they decided to go over it again. She
offered to Jennifer.
Your first name again?
Jennifer.
Jennifer,
Platt.
terrible with
Not a
names, I'm
problem.
sorry. And if she's going to go over it, and it's a Reader's Digest version, you will become accustomed to the questions, and you can answer it, and that way, there'll be no, so it's up to you to decide whether you want to go over it again, and you as chairman to say, you're fine with that.
I am fine with it, so if she wants to.
You fine with that?
She can't.
She's gonna hear we continued the hearing and we're gonna be
She
presented the
didn't
same
hear the
information.
first part.
I didn't watch the video, so I
Right,
wasn't
so she
Mullinized.
can't do it. It's the emergency
So
part.
this is
Right.
where I'm.
Right, do you have a problem with me sitting on the board?
I have
Right.
no problem with you sitting on the board.
Okay, then you're recused, I'll make a decision. I figured out a little while ago.
Hold on a minute. I appreciate you taking the lead, but I want to make sure we're doing it right, that's all.
Yes.
Okay, so he can participate, we have the approval of the applicant. She can still sit, correct? I mean, she isn't Mullenized, but she,
She can't vote.
You can't vote.
I guess I'm saying is I want to make sure you get the information whether you vote or not, so you're aware.
Let's go sit right over there.
Okay. So you know.
You need this paper.
And I need to sign it? Or
No.
you need to sign it?
No, just.
Thank you.
Okay. So you're participating, correct, Peter?
You're leaving, I'm leaving.
No, we need him.
I'm getting water.
Drink of water.
No water from
Tough crowd, huh?
While he's getting water, for the record,
For the record, Jennifer Platt here with Matthew Field, on behalf of M&M Realty Trust. We are, as you know, we are here asking for an amendment to our subdivision plan special permit. Very minor modification, just to recap, I know you were all here last time, but under the bylaws, there's no required setbacks in our decision. We do have a stated front yard, side yard, rear yard setback requirement in order to better locate the houses on the lots and not be so close to the wetlands, which runs behind the majority of the lots. We're asking for a amendment to our special permit to limit the front yard setback to 15 feet. The side and rear setbacks will remain at 10 feet, as stated in the permit. So it's just an amendment to go from 25 front yard setback to a 15-foot front yard setback.
10 on the side, you said?
10 on the side?
10 on the side, 10 in the rear.
Yeah. And is there any change to that? Was it further?
No, those are the
Those are the-
10 side, 10 rear is as currently stated
Okay.
in the special permit.
Yeah.
So it's only the front yard setback that is changing.
Yeah, I don't have any problem
And
with that.
how many, just in those 3 lots, correct?
No, there's more lots than that, and I believe we have, it's lots 8 and then lots 11 through 25.
How many lots is that total?
14, 15?
14, 15.
15 lots requiring
How come that
setback
thing won't come
relief.
up by touching?
Mara, did we receive a letter from Conservation in support of the granting them the relief?
Yes, we did. Conservation Commission worked hard with Matt on the layout for the houses that he had, and they would be happy if you could provide relief on the front yard setback.
Okay. So Conservation's hoping that we will grant the relief.
Yeah.
That's your take on, so the conservation is not going to give them any relief, though they granted it for earlier?
We
were not granted it earlier.
When Matt was working with Conservation Commission, they were looking at specific lot plans that had house locations on it, and that's what the Conservation Commission made their decision on. And it,
All right.
So rather than conservation, us going in front of conservation and seeking further relief to have the houses located closer to the wetlands, which would allow us to maintain that 25 front yard setback, conservation has asked us and worked with us to see if we can move the lot or the homes closer to the front of the lots. That gives more protection to the wetlands in the back and still provides a 15-foot front yard setback through the development.
Yeah, this is the right way to go.
One quick question, I can't see numbers up there, where?
Would you like me to point at them?
Here?
So, where we're, if I may.
Yeah, please, come back.
As this plan shows, excuse me, it's 15 foot, 18 foot, 15 foot, 17 foot. It's all of these lots that are on here and here that we're asking for relief. All of these are all built, all done.
Okay. And if I ask, the ones on the other side of the road?
These?
On the top side,
Yep.
those have nothing to do with conservation, correct?
No, they actually do because of conservation, because of a full cleared site like this, they're saying because of the runoff,
they have control of those as well, believe it or not.
Interesting.
Conservation Commission, though it's nowhere near wetlands.
Correct.
That's what they're saying. And on the lower side of the road, I can see the wetlands delineated there.
Well, you know, when you're building,
Well, I think it's kind of like the squirrel in the road again.
when you're building that close together.
I don't have a problem with it
15
under
foot.
under the circumstances of what they've showed it, they proved it. And again,
They're
Matt
on the
is my
plan
brother-in-law,
showing
so
that.
everybody knows, Matt is my brother-in-law. He's married to my favorite sister, who has a twin, who's also my favorite sister. Just so you all know. No confusion.
Thank you, Peter. Matt, I don't see 15 feet being a problem, especially when you have that density. When the houses are closer together, being that close to the street actually proportionally works.
Is that the bare minimum you can go? Can you go back of 16 feet?
He's showing
17?
he's showing some at 18. You're going to stay to the plan, though, right?
Correct.
18, 17.
But we have 15 foot, we're requesting 15 feet. There are no setback requirements required in this. I have no idea how it got in there. We missed it when we got our decision.
So, just want to, any comment?
I just have a problem with it being 15 feet. Most cars are 15 feet. The cars are going to be sticking out on the roads if they only have 15-foot front yards and driveways. I understand he has a
They have
problem.
garages, Mark.
What? I know, but
Garages.
not everybody's car is in the garage. If they have two cars or somebody comes to visit.
There's no
So I think
regulation in setbacks on a
Matt.
cluster zone.
Matt, I have a thought on that, because I would agree with him that sometimes you have families with more than 1, 2, or even 3 cars. In a scenario like that, what I would be looking for is maybe you could create a parking space on the side of the garage, so that you would have, in those scenarios where you've got the setback relief, can you provide 1 extra parking space on the side of the structure?
We have turnarounds on the large majority of them. yeah.
You do?
That creates a parking space.
On every one that we've built so far, we have a turnaround.
Okay, so if we can request that that be part of the ones that we give you the setback relief, then I think we
I have no problem
satisfy
with
his
that.
I have no
concern.
problem with it then. I'm
I
just
have no
concerned-
problem with that, Mark.
It's a good concern, I just want to make
It's
sure we address
okay.
this and we can meet it that way.
Would have been nicer if the conservation had bent a little bit. I understand it. Why they're making us bend is,
We lost the sale for 713.
Keep moving.
Yeah. And we're here for you every time, so. That being said, I would entertain a motion to grant the relief for the setbacks and the lots.
For the parking?
Correct.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
The
you,
ayes have
appreciate
it.
it.
What do these things do? What are those?
that's how many times you've downloaded it.
So,
You were you were
Make it
great to
go
work
away?
with.
Laura Goldsmith and Linda to be
It
signed.
ain't over yet.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mark.
yeah, thank you. We'll work on the final wording. Perfect, thanks, thank you.
Right, how do I get rid of this?
What's that? No, to get rid of that.
Let's see, we got
You just go
260
down,
A Road,
reset
Water
the
Resource
arrow.
District Special
Give it a
Permit and
second.
Site Plan.
You see the arrow disappears.
Okay. So this one's a little interesting.
All right, I like interesting.
All right, so here we are, Harvey Road. Oh, wait, we're here.
This one.
Yeah, so
Give us 1 second.
that's it. Now, if you want to get rid of it, just hit that arrow.
Huh?
That arrow right there brings you right back.
I like paper a lot better than this. I want it on the
So
record.
I told you, two more meetings, and then we'll check in on
Huh?
if it's working for you.
It ain't
So
working
give
for me.
Give me 2 more meetings.
I gotta look at it anyway, Peter. Whether it's on a computer or in paper.
Excuse me?
You use it every time.
His hands are so strong that when he touches that screen, it breaks.
Yeah.
Okay, for the record, folks, please.
Ronald Raffi, owner of 260 Air Road.
Jacob Brothers, potential developer and purchaser of the property.
Okay. So the site plan and the special permit.
Yeah, you'll notice that we don't have a public hearing open yet. When they submitted the application, there was not enough time to advertise the hearing. But then I did go back and reviewed the Permit Extension Act. So if you have approved this site plan and special permit before.
Before when?
2008, is that
I think it was that.
9?
No, I thought it was 10.
10? So,
Yeah.
okay. And I have that history, it's just not
It's accepted.
clicking for me right at the moment. So there have been prior approvals, and then Mr. Rappy came in for extensions on those approvals several times, and then didn't need to come in for extensions several times because of the Permit Extension Act from the state, granted 4-year automatic extension, and then the state reissued that 4-year automatic extension. So I'm coming up with a deadline of May 2018 for this permit to be valid. So I would suggest that he's requesting another extension now of the prior approvals, unless you have a change in the plans.
No change in plans.
Okay, so.
So
I'll make that
description is. wait,
So process-wise, you've got several options. I'm just looking for your feedback on, sorry, that was clear as
No
mud.
reason why we couldn't just extend it again.
Right,
Let's
so
just
let's
find out what the,
construct a new 3,700 square foot retail building associated with site improvements, including 25 parking spaces, raise existing dwelling. The special permit addresses the following uses within the water resource district: rendering impervious more than 20% of the lot area, with 29% approved for this application, and grading resulting in creation of exterior grades less than 5 feet above the maximum groundwater elevation, with 4 feet separation allowed on portions of this site. That's what it was in 2006 and extended out through 2018 of May, and it's due to expire, so we can grant him an extension on this plan that was presented way back in 2006 and has been
what are you proposing on it now?
Same exact property.
Not changing?
Where is 260 Air Road?
It's right next to the gas station.
Next to DBW.
No,
the air
past
line.
there.
Is it past it?
Yeah,
No,
right on.
right next to the KOA, or the
Yeah.
campground.
Oh, all right, all right, all right.
Yeah. And the house that's discussed in that
is gone.
is gone,
gone.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
yeah.
So
So
Not
retail
Paul Ruth, you
establishment,
own that.
Retail establishment,
2,700, how many?
37 roughly.
3,700 square feet. So why don't we do this? Why don't we, I'll take a motion to amend it to say, since the house is raised, we no longer need that verbiage in there, and then vote to grant them a permit extension. How long does the extension go to?
Traditionally, you do 2 years, but that's up to you.
2 years, okay.
Okay, I'll make that motion. Unless there's
Any more
more
discussion?
unless there's more debate or discussion.
You gonna start making something there?
That is the plan, yeah. We're ready to
Good.
put shovels in the ground over there. We just have to purchase
Use
the-
excavators, they do better, quicker work.
When they get
Shovels will
paid,
take a
yeah.
while.
Okay.
All right.
So I got a motion.
Huh?
I was going to ask you to use the shovel on the weekend.
And use it on my head and get it over
Wait a
with.
second.
I got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about being clear as mud on that, but it
That's
was.
okay. No, it's, when you're going back to 2006 and moving forward, it can be fun.
Yeah.
I remember when they were here before, we had to do something with the blight. The house was
The house is.
Right, I asked him to secure it, and now it's gone, so
Yeah.
it's very secure.
That's great. All right. 8:15, we're catching up. Public hearing, 3 Harvard Road special permit for height exception. Do we have people from 3 Harvard Road today?
What is 3 Harvard Road?
It is the very front.
Yeah.
Very
There. 300 road.
This is the most colorful site plan you'll see today.
There you go.
Another one. How do you get rid of these things?
Press that down.
What?
You are entertaining.
I'm old school. Oh, he's giving out paper. I like this guy.
Thank you.
I vote to approve whatever he wants if he keeps bringing paper.
Thank you.
And where is this again? Oh,
Okay, we'll start off with your presentation. For the record, John.
I'm Robert Gove. I'm the general manager for the IME business that's moving into that location.
I'm Rob Cunningham. I'm with AKF. We're the consulting engineers that are working on the project renovation.
Okay, and one more time.
I'm Dwight Patton with Cressel Partners, Boston, Project Management.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear it.
Okay, well, we're renovating the building to create an injection molding facility to make preforms for, we are a company that's part of the CPF, New England Hot Fill business over in Air, Patriot Beverages. That's all part of the same group. And so that building's been vacant for a number of years since Very Fine left, and the CPF group purchased the site and opened up Patriot Beverages. This building was unused as a boon to the business. What they have an opportunity to do is vertically integrate the business by molding their own preforms for the bottles. So what we need in order to facilitate putting the equipment in there that's necessary for that is the building is not high enough in that area. So as what's shown on the diagram, there is that we need roughly, it's a 8-foot extension above the existing building to create an interior height of 40 feet to allow the installation of that equipment.
What the drawing shows is the existing building is 27.5 feet. That's why it looks larger than 8 feet. But
Okay.
Is this building, is this the one that?
It's building B on the drawing, so it's across from 20 Harvard Road.
Yep, so it's on the right-hand side of the road.
Yes, it's next to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, we're gonna back up here.
So if you look at where it says U4420,
Yeah.
the next building over is the one that we're talking about, right there, yes.
Okay. Where's the bottling portion of it?
The bottling is across the street.
You moved it?
There's no bottling in that building that we're in right now. That equipment has all been removed.
There's no longer exists, correct?
Because when we were kids, we used to sit on there with a big high-pressure hose shooting the apples, if you guys remember those days, and they bottled in that factory right there.
Right.
And we shut the glue down once in a while because we got too much water in the glue. So that's the part I remember.
They trusted you with a fire hose?
I worked 80 hours a week when I was 16 years old there.
So, doesn't Littleton Robotics use space in there?
The small building to the left of, or just to the west of 4460, correct, right there. We're currently using that to house the robotics team.
All right, so presently the height of the existing building now is 27 feet?
27.5 feet, correct.
And you want to go up 13 more feet?
We want to go up to 43.
43 feet, yeah.
What's our bylaw say, 34, 36?
The bylaw says 40. They can go to 43 under a footnote of the intensity of use schedule. They can go over 40 by special permit from the planning board because of a footnote in the intensity of use schedule.
And that's
You can't drop the units down inside the, you can't lower the
That's to the average height of the roof.
median height.
Median.
Yeah, sinking the floor on the inside would be tougher to facilitate getting the equipment into the building because it would step down. If we keep the floor at the existing height, we can roll the machines right in without a lot of difficulty.
And when are you going to have this up and running?
August.
What month is this?
This is
May.
So
This question, you're making sure you're on the ball
we
with this.
have a lot of
I
work
lost
to do
my
in a
humor
very
for a
short
little
period.
while. I don't see a problem with it.
Any other comments from anybody on the board? Any concerns?
It's just, did you say 13? Where did I get 8 from? 13 feet above the current roof
Well, actually,
line?
more than
I said
13.
8 because I thought the bylaw said 35 feet, and we were looking to go up to 43.
So we can go to 40 and then 43 with an amendment in the footnote for intensity. Any comment from anybody else? I'll take comment from the public if we have any.
Excuse me, Nick Kozlowski, homeowner, 33 Harvard Road, first house on the right.
Up the hill?
That's right, first house, brick house.
Nice house.
Historic house, it is, yeah. And been there for about 1.5 years now. And I've got some concerns with the extension, vertical addition of the building. I was under the impression that the bylaw is 32 feet maximum height, not 40, but I'm not sure. So I just
Will this
looked
be
it up.
making, if you mind if I ask, will this be stuff exiting through the top of it? It's all interiorly, there's no pressure coming out of it, there's no noise out of the top of the height of this?
There's just the exhaust fans in the ceiling.
Like an air conditioning type exhaust?
Just heat. We're not exhausting any fumes or anything, it's just
Yeah.
the heat from the equipment, that's all.
And do you have, how's the sound over where you're at now, at your house, sir?
As it ramps up, as they're ramping up, there's sometimes intermittent noises that I'll page up Beverage directly to complain, if you will, to have that control.
Have they been
Yep,
considered
they've
of
been
your feel?
receptive.
Good.
to the
Yeah, it's definitely 40 feet, and it says greater height may be allowed on special permit from the planning board. On its determination, such height is functionally essential for the operation of the activity and will cause no substantial increase in shadow, cover, or reduction in privacy for abutters. Yeah.
And it isn't it's not the whole roof, it's only where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So it's only the front portion, not the back of the building.
Can you maybe show that?
Is there any way you can show that?
It's in the drawings.
If you actually go back to the floor plans, you can see the plan of the building.
You scroll up.
Yep, keep going. So there's the building there, that's your roof plan. So if you can back up a little, just the white section is the only part that's being raised.
That's along the road, that's along Harvard Road?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, the rest of the roof is going to stay.
Wait a minute. So that you're going to raise it by the road, not further back near the railroad tracks?
Correct.
Correct.
And is that on the left or the?
It's on the.
It's on the right as you're heading towards Harvard. Depends where you're
Just
coming and going.
For the record, could you state your name because you spoke?
Eileen Rolski.
And your address?
I'm at 30 Harvard Road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. That's my last one.
Oh. Things to make you go,
Is there a way to move this back, or explain to me why you want to put it to the front and not to the middle or the back of the building?
Well, for the utilities to come into the building, it's the shortest runs for all of the electrical connections and everything coming in, so again, that all adds cost to the installation, but as far as functionality and the way the product would flow through the building, it makes sense to have it on that side with the finished goods moving towards the back of the building, towards the warehouse, away from the production area.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good explanation. Currently, the Littleton Robotics is headed to the championship round, I think, somewhere. Where are they headed? Do we know? I know Chuck would know all this if he was here, so I wish he was. That being said, do they currently lease the space, or they donated the space? How does that?
Donated, hasn't it?
It's donated. So how can we make sure that that continues if we grant this?
Mark!
I see
It's my-
no issue with it. That building is pretty much unused.
He finally did learn something. My child's grown up.
He's not supposed to, that's called.
It's called
arm
linkage.
bending. Yeah. But of course, he can do it.
The fact remains is the building is unused. There's been no discussions of removing that privilege at any point.
Oh, we look forward to continued friendship and space for them to be able to use something. So I appreciate your comments.
I have a comment. My name is Chet Olson. I live at 24 Harvard Road. And I'm wondering, what is the nature of the equipment going in there? Is this part of a cooling tower for injection molding, or what? Is it a crane for moving equipment around?
All of the above, except there's no cooling towers.
No cooling tower.
What it is in order to a more environmentally friendly type of cooler versus the cooling tower is the adiabatic cooler. So what that is, it's basically a large radiator with fans on it. So it doesn't use a lot of extra water or anything like that. It's not emitting any kind of evaporation or anything into the atmosphere.
What kind of sound does it make? What are the decibel levels?
It's inside.
No, these are on the roof.
On the roof.
These are on the roof. I don't have that information off the top of my
How
head.
deep is the
but
building? From the front to the back of it, how many feet is it?
It's 150 feet, I believe.
So you're saying this structure will be pretty much right up on Harvard Road? Pretty close.
The face of the building, the vertical part in dark along the lower edge there, going this way, yes, that will be facing the road. The adiabatic coolers that we're talking about will actually be behind that on the roof. So
On
you
the
won't be
existing
able-
roof.
On the existing roof, right. So they're going to be at 27 feet.
And hidden.
And plus whatever height they are.
Hmm.
But they'll be behind that section in the front.
How long is that dark section right there? In feet?
It's 120 feet, I believe.
Do you have any idea how loud or quiet the system is?
I believe the adiabatic coolers are roughly right around 70 dB, 70, 72 dB. Again, I have to get the specific cut sheet for a piece of equipment. and
Yeah, just
verify that.
check the town bylaws, because if you need to put a acoustical curtain around them to lower that, you better plan it in now. Yeah.
That would be a concern to me, because sometimes I hear noises from that building. I don't even know what it is. It sounds like something's being pumped or whatever. Maybe you've heard the same thing, and it's annoying. It's annoying, and it'll go on for hours. And then, so that's the other question: is this a 24-hour operation, and this is going to run continuously when we're trying to sleep?
This is intended to be a 24/7 operation. So it's a manufacturing environment. And so there will be equipment running around the clock primarily inside the building.
So look at the dBs and look at maybe if you have to put a enclosure around it to drop the dBs down.
What is our?
Decibels.
I know what they are. What's our?
I think it's 50. I think it's 55.
It depends on because I did actually pull that down to look at it, and I believe that it's up to 67 in some cases.
How many feet away?
At the property line?
The property line. So it's measured from the property line, so the unit itself is usually measured up close and then from the property line. So the behind the building
Property
unit
line is right on the road.
Whatever it is, it's up. You'll have to comply with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
The noise emission primarily will not be facing the road. It will be facing the back of the building.
Yeah.
So if we're to approve this, I would definitely condition it to make sure that it's tested by the applicant.
Before we get,
Well, I understand if we are going to, that we make sure that that's part of the condition of the approval.
I think before we go any further, we need to know the decibels. I know this is the first public hearing. I think they need to come back with us and tell us how loud it's going to be.
I think that's fair. Yeah, absolutely.
Before we approve the site plan.
Well, I understand it's a commercial, it's one of our oldest commercial, I know it's sat vacant for years, but all that housing basically went up around it, and I knew
The only
it
one
was
that's been there the
business.
entire time is his house up there, the little brick one. That's been there forever.
Yeah.
But again, you might want to think about moving those towers to the back, to be honest with you, and then building some curtain around the coolers, the fans on the top. And granted, so you got to run in 150 feet more, so that's 150 feet of electrical lines. And again, we want you to stay. As far as I'm concerned, I want to try and appease you, but we also have people that have only moved in the last 10 years. I hate these things. But again, so we have an obligation to our residents also.
Sure.
In my opinion. So.
Dave Altman, 75 Harvard Road. In addition to the comments here, I would just add what consideration's been given to the master plan. I haven't read it in a while, but the last time I looked at it, it talked about, for this area, we need to, there's underdeveloped commercial space adjacent to this that, that in the long term and hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll see some change. Given, we're adding a whole nother story to an already industrial, what does that mean for the likelihood of attracting other commercial development? There's a derelict house down there. The depot's not probably going to be like that forever. So
let's hope.
Just saying, I'm just curious if the proponents have given some thought to the master plan, how this fits with the broader picture for the neighborhood.
Well, it's nice that we got somebody coming in and using the existing structure and retrofitting it, keeping it nice, I hope, hiring local contractors. Haven't seen any Joey Owen signs out there yet. But
So I got.
Joey Owen's a good guy.
I got 65 at daytime and 50 at nighttime. And,
So the DBA rating at 30 feet is 63. At 3 feet, it's 74.
So you might be thinking about putting them in the back of the building, huh?
Actually, these coolers actually will be on the other side of the addition, so they'll be set back from the road.
They will be set back.
Yeah, they'll be closer to the MBA commuter rail than the front of the building.
Yes.
That's all the sound emitting is coming out of the fans in the back of it, and that's the decibel levels you're reading to me?
Correct, 63, and we have the cut sheet that we can forward to you. We have a 63 dBA at 30 feet.
yeah. Because it's got continuous noise, dominant noise, impulsive noise, and sporadic noise. So, whatever.
It has to do with
it fits
newlyweds, married, and
And I
something else.
believe that's also at the property line
Yeah,
too,
so
right?
you'll just
Correct.
need to make sure it complies with these parameters.
More questions over here.
Through the chair, please. Last, you can keep moving. Go ahead,
Bring
please.
me serenity to accept the things that not change, courage to change the things that can, and wisdom to know the difference.
So again, my name is Eileen Ralsky, and I am at plot number 17, across from the other side of the street. And I have two issues that I'm a little concerned about. One is the lighting at night, and if that's going to be increased. It can be, at some point, at some times, the lighting can be quite bright at night, and I wonder if that's going to be a 24-hour situation. I don't know if that's...
See, that's not an issue that's before the board tonight.
On the property?
Well, we're not talking about lighting, we're only talking about this. This is the issue that we're voting on tonight.
Well, we were talking about the noise.
Because
and
that's part of this, the equipment they're putting up there.
Yeah.
Will you be adding any lighting to the exterior of the structure when you?
There's currently lighting at the back of the building along the rail spur, well, along the railway. So as part of what's outlined in the project scope there is an extension of the rail siding. So there was an original rail siding that was about 550 feet long. And we intend to extend that down. We have an application in with the MBTA currently to extend that another 375 feet. And what that will do will allow us to receive raw materials by rail. And consequently, we'll be able to offload that material at any point in time during the day or night, as we need to keep the operation running. So there will be also some silos erected in the back of the building as storage facilities for that material. The lighting that's existing there now, I don't believe is active that I've ever seen. I've never seen it on as long as I've been there.
At night?
At night, you know.
Oh, it's on at night.
In the parking lot, so.
The parking lot lights may be on,
We
but I
should
don't
get
believe
back to
the
that.
lights along the railway.
We're getting off track.
So,
Okay,
there is lighting there.
But lighting, we were talking, I wanted to know if you were adding lighting to what you're requesting tonight for the increase in.
No, we're
There's
not
no
going
lights
to add
being
any
added to
lighting to any of that
Okay.
part of it.
That was my question. All right, so I think Mark and Jamie were concerned that we don't have enough information on the decibels, but he did respond saying it was 63, but do you want to know how they're going to be?
But this is more than just a special permit for the height exception. With the adding of the rail spur and the lights in the back and the silos in the back and everything else, we need to still see a real site plan, not just talk about one aspect of it, I think.
At what point do you plan to do those other items?
They're all part of this project. So the rail spur would be completed by November of this year.
Yeah, and see, Mark, we don't have any authority over MBTA property.
But it's not, it's a site plan. I'm not talking whether
We don't control anything that MBTA does.
we control the site that the MBTA rail is gonna go up against. We need to look at the lighting, where the silo's gonna go. You got neighbors on the other side of it as well.
I would agree with you with the silos, but not with the MBTA.
I'm not talking,
Okay,
they
so-
plan on putting activity back there. And I think we need to take a look at what it's gonna do to the other side of the road, not just the road, this side of Harvard Road, what's it gonna do to the other side? Well, I just think it should be a real full-blown site plan, rather than just a little, coming in for just the adding to the roof. We need to see.
I think we could vote on this tonight, at least release this, then they can order their equipment and get working on the install. And then they know enough now to come back with a plan showing the silos.
Well, if they order the equipment and get it up rolling, I mean, I agree with Mark. Why would you not look at
Sir, you have to, all through the board, please. All right, everybody, for the record, you got to go through the
Again,
chair.
development 75 Harvard Road, I just think that what the comment, the gentleman's comment to see a full site plan in this consideration, the proponent said all these pieces are tied together. It's the full project. We're looking at a piece of it.
Well, the piece is a component of the building, and that involves a building. Everything they're talking about tonight involves a building permit for work that's being done in and on the building.
The project is all this one, correct?
Yeah, well, if we just heard tonight that there will be silos going out back. That's even though it's part of this project, it's not part of this building.
Is it part of the project? Is it all one and the same? I thought I heard him say it was.
Gentlemen?
It's all, we can't do manufacturing unless we have all the pieces.
Silos, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it is all part of the same project. As far as the site plan and everything has been submitted, we have our building permit. The selectmen approved our application and support for the rail spur at previous meetings.
I attended that meeting.
Oh, so
And
they're
actually,
telling us what to do again?
The new silos that are going in, so in the back of the building now, there's currently a vertical tank that's 45 and a half feet and 48 and a half feet. The silos we have going in are lower than those. So we won't be, the existing tanks, we won't be any higher than those tanks.
Will they be in the same area?
A little bit set back, yeah, more kind of near the loading dock.
Yeah.
Actually, if you scroll down on the site plan, they're actually, the location where they are is shown on the next drawing down, I believe. Keep going, I'm sorry.
Site plan might have been first.
Yeah, it might have been back up towards the top.
Take a deep breath, dude.
Okay.
So we somehow drifted off to talk about the rail spur and lighting and everything, and you're saying that that's inclusive of this plan? It's part of it?
The silos, yes.
So I guess.
That's the top?
That's number one.
Oh. I thought I saw one
So
earlier
now
where
that
it
we've
showed-
opened.
Oh, that one. They're right there.
See the
But this
three?
is existing conditions plan.
But, right, so what we did was, so we had Niche come out.
Okay, we should
You'll
Just
wanna
because
wait
now
till
we've opened it
Mm-hmm.
to a whole bunch more.
Right, so the vice chair has made some good points to me, and I'll share them with everybody, that we should probably have you guys come back before us with a full site plan review. I personally am glad you guys are here in town. We certainly want to support your efforts to get up and running and make the improvements that you're talking about, while being good neighbors. And I just think it'd be beneficial to us, as well as everybody here that's concerned, that they get to see a full site plan with all the improvements that you're proposing, and maybe we can get it all done in one fell swoop.
Good.
So.
Through the chair?
Please.
If we held off approval on this one component tonight, would that affect your schedule at all? Or do you need us to vote on this component of it at least?
It could potentially delay the erection of that section of the building. If we're not approved to build it, we can't put it up.
Yeah.
So, and that would delay our project beyond the completed completion date that we have projected.
I would suggest, Eddie, we at least release this component. This is a standalone a building affected component that they're talking about for some machinery.
Right.
And I would have agreed with you until we got off on this whole nother path of having a conversation about other pieces involved in this. So, and I'm you're a commercial business, everybody, most of those houses all came in thereafter. I know it was vacant for years, and I don't like to see any business that's creating jobs or anything delayed with growth. But now we've gone down this other path and opened this whole other can of worms, and I think I'd like to see the entire project just so we can see all phases of it and then go forward from there.
That site plan actually behind you does show the new silo locations.
I see that in the packet that we have. I don't see it here, but I don't think, did everybody, these questions, I mean.
Through the chair?
Please.
Not bad.
Awesome.
I have to actually agree with Richard. It's an existing building that they want to do modifications to the building. I think they do need to come back and do a whole site plan on everything, but I think we could handle it that the building itself, the modifications that they want to do, providing they can prove to us, and that's the risk they're going to take, that their decibels are going to be well below what they're telling us for the residents around us. If they want to go ahead and start modifying the building, we could do it, but they do need to come back and do a site plan that shows where everything is, and a little more than purple dots and circles and everything else like that. And Rich's last night and everything else like that, I can understand it's a process that has been here for 100 and something years. It's basically a modification to the building that's been a bottling facility to modernize it, to bring it up to speed. I get that part, but I do think that decibels are important and a full site plan is as well.
I'd make a motion to release this portion of it.
Understanding they're coming back with a site plan for
Yeah,
full
I'm
review.
assuming you,
With the comment that they have to meet the decibel issue.
Sure.
and you're going to come back with a site plan that
You'll provide
reflects.
the information,
Absolutely.
you'll do the testing and provide the information to the town that you've met the requirement for the decibels.
Okay, I'll modify my motion to include that, the verbiage.
Second.
Got a motion and a second and a motion. So we got a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 It's like you got your
approval for your
you're
height.
moving. You're-
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Okay. All right, folks.
If your site plans are ready, we can come back at your next meeting.
Thank you.
Get in touch with Mara, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tony. All right, board business, bills and payroll. All right, folks, next agenda item is board business, bills and payroll.
Done
We've
that?
done minutes. Hold on. Folks, any questions, please take them outside, okay? We're still meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Yep,
much.
thank you.
Here's a question.
$2.10 an hour. That's how much I made.
Did you have to shoot the, that's good.
I didn't, I left off while we were shooting with the hose.
All right, so we were on a group email today with some items. Let me get back to the agenda, hold on.
You got 4 minutes.
Item E, other. So we've done planning board rules and regulations, vote to adopt. Did you guys review the application for senior residential development application, affordable housing application, special permit application? All right, we'd entertain a motion to accept them as written if they've been reviewed. If not, move it to the next meeting.
Leave it till next meeting.
Next meeting.
I'd make a motion to,
So
am I the only one that reviewed them?
I did too, Richard, you and I.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Look, I couldn't get anything out of this thing without you two playing with it, so no, I didn't read any of it.
So,
I say it up front, I didn't read
Form
it.
1 is right there.
All right, here we are. This is
There
easy.
you have it.
This is easy to turn around. Yeah. That looks great.
So it goes, it's a new special permit form application. You've seen this one like 3 times now.
Yeah. Oh, Ed, we have a,
1 second, I want to make sure we go through it. I see you, Anna. Give me one moment.
And on the form, it goes through all the submission requirements. And so this is just for
Special permit.
any special permit application that we have.
Okay, does anybody have any comment on it?
I thought it was very user-friendly.
Yeah, that's the first thing I think too.
Okay. We have somebody from the audience that would like to speak on it. For the record?
For the record, Anna Houston, 20 Meeting House Road. So, when taking a look at the form on page 1, hearing a lot of the comments from past planning board meetings, there tend to be a lot of questions around, say, conservation land when a particular development or lot is abutting conservation land. So I'm wondering whether it would make sense to actually have another question that asks about the abutting properties, so that that can be formally acknowledged as to whether or not it's a road or whether another side is conservation land. So that's my input on that particular page. And then I think aquifer water resource is on there twice, at the very bottom of the page. I didn't know if there was a reason for that. It's in the bottom left column and in the bottom right column.
Right, one should be aquifer and the other one should be water resource. The other revision is on the third line from the top, assessor's map. We don't use block and lot, we use parcel, so I can make that update.
Okay. Anybody have a comment on needing to add the verbiage regarding the abutting property?
Well, what's shown on the application forms is reflective of our zoning bylaws. So I would think that we'd have to update the zoning bylaws in order to require additional information in the application.
So that's where it's coming.
Yeah, it's all dictated by them.
It's just us now, it's okay. All right, thank you for that, Maren. So, as is, it is user-friendly. Anna, thank you for taking the time to review it and give us your input. I would support a motion to approve this special permit application as written for our applicants.
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? He's just being quiet. He's such a
Sounds like it's,
I have laryngitis.
sounds like it's all approved.
That one's good. All right, next one.
Are we going to go through every one of these?
Senior residential, well,
Just out of curiosity.
yeah, there's only three.
Yeah.
There's only two more to go. Senior residential development,
You're still in front page, news,
again,
TV.
we're looking at it now. Makes sense to me. I've reviewed it. I've also had some input as it was written. Does anybody have any comments?
Pretty cut and dry, isn't it?
There is, and nice and clean and clear. Good.
As written, you like it, Peter?
Oh, I love it.
We have a comment from the audience. Anna, please go ahead.
So on page 7, under open space, it says total common open space and then total usable common open space. So will we be defining that somewhere, or is that defined somewhere?
Thinking back to the bylaw, I don't know that there's a definition or not.
I'm wondering if that comes from some of the conversations around,
Some
for
of the
example,
stuff.
I'm
Some
sorry.
use it,
Some of the stuff that
some
we've
not.
seen so far.
Yes, exactly, which makes sense,
Mhm.
but I think that there might just be some question about what that means,
Right.
if it's not defined.
Right, I think it's something that we should define on the application, the different, and I think it could be right here on the application, that we can define common open space, which I think is in the bylaw, or open space is in the bylaw, and then usable open space, which I think there's been a difference in opinion on this board on what we consider usable open space. We have Mr. Crowley, who thinks that wetlands are usable open space because they're worth protecting, and that the wildlife uses it, and other factors, it's an environmental protection. Mr. Montanari believes that usable open space is something that can be used by humans and recreated on, correct?
Mhm.
So
Well,
that's the difference.
But no,
So I
see, I'm taking mine directly from our code. And our code is very specific about open space. It does not exclude wetlands. So I don't know where we're coming up with this exclusion for wetlands.
I'm not excluding
No,
it.
we just have an abundance of wetlands that are being handed to us.
If you,
Yeah, I don't think wetlands does the town any good, so I
I don't think it
yeah,
should
but-
be considered as open space.
Exactly, that's
Yeah, but
what
the-
I'm trying to say. And
but
that's-
our mandate, our bylaw,
Then we need to
doesn't,
change it.
doesn't give us, doesn't exclude wetlands. Open space is all the space that's on the, is
Our
on the
bylaw
drawing.
Do you
says
want-
30%
I
of
would
the open
recommend-
space can only be wetlands. We
Okay,
should-
so
Correct.
we've got 1, 2, and 3. 1 is total common open space, which you would want to know in an application. number 2, would you want to know the,
Uplands?
you want to know the uplands? Do you want to know what's accessible by the public? Do you,
just say
what
drawing.
information,
Uplands would be.
Yeah.
what information are you looking for?
So,
And then I don't accept that one.
you want to make that revision?
I
Now's the
think we
time to
need
do
to make,
it.
what do you mean now's the time?
Because we have some work to do with these bylaws, so we need the people to be able to apply.
Well, that's why I don't think we should rush these through.
You haven't,
So you guys
you've
are
been
just
looking
looking
at
to
these
delay
since
it.
January.
Look,
You're
we
going to
can-
be in court.
We can vote this in tonight.
I don't feel comfortable making this decision. I think we should talk to town council, because I hate to make a decision on something that town council may overturn on it.
They've
and
looked at it.
Oh, you
I
have,
just can't make a
can I see your,
decision.
can I see your book
Can't.
or this,
Town council.
no,
Upland and
it's the,
wetland, is
town.
that, question
The
one
other
would
boards,
be,
you know,
Yeah.
they
question
sign
one
something
would
and
be,
Total open space.
do what they feel.
Total
Let me change
upland.
my mind again, you know, I don't agree with what I agreed with earlier.
I would
Why don't
entertain,
we put this on
I
the
would-
agenda as a public hearing?
no, I would entertain a motion to approve this article as written with an amendment to open space and outdoor amenities to also say total upland instead of usable open space, common open space, total upland, and then total wetland.
And what is that amount?
Just, we want to know what it is.
yeah, we'll know
I
what
don't
we're
care
working
when they
with.
apply, when they apply,
You
we'll
can-
know what it
you
is.
can
Then you
ask-
can make your determination whether you accept that number of open space, what's wet and what's dry.
Littleton Town Code.
I think that's pretty,
Do you have
It gets you
the
the
town-
answer to the question that you're not comfortable with.
Right, we know that common open space is part of the bylaw. Usable is Judy's taking Mark's words and trying to come up with a form
Incorporate them,
to
right.
give him that information.
So if I can get a motion to approve with the amendments suggested,
so moved.
can I get a second?
Now, how do we amend that?
So just on that line where it's, I think my phone's gonna
Number-
die.
Line 1,
Line 2, under open space and outdoor amenities, total upland open space and total wet. So there'll be a line 2 and 2A.
Upland?
And total wetland open space.
Why do we need to even know the,
So what's usable space?
the total?
Total usable common open space.
We're not using that verbiage, we're changing it to total upland common open space. And then total wetland common open space, or total wetland open space. So we can, so you can, yeah, so it's gonna be 2 and 2A, or 2, 3, and 4. So that'll be deleted, usable, and it'll be upland, and then below it will be wetland.
And this thing can be amended at a future date also?
Sure.
It's your application form.
Do you have any
Why don't we bring it up
comment,
next meeting?
If you so choose,
we should probably have something.
Can we
get
hear
to
what
the file.
comments Anna has to say?
absolutely, as soon as, so Richard, we do have a motion to make that amendment. Would you second it? And I'll keep it open for public discussion, but I just want to know.
I thought he made the motion.
Jamie made the motion.
Yeah, I'll second it for further
Okay.
discussion.
Thank you.
Um,
So what we're saying then, if I understand correctly, is that the word usable will go out, but instead it will divide it between the uplands and the wetlands, so
Right.
that there's that distinction.
Mhm. Okay.
And if that change is made, then on page 10, under site plan, the same language is used. It says location of proposed buffer yards in usable open space and area of all usable open spaces. So that might require some language amendment as well.
To chase it all the way through. Okay.
Okay, help me out again, site plan?
Yes, on page
Okay.
10.
Thank you. And under site plan?
It's the first bullet. Just so it's consistent.
Right, now I'm coming up with the question, is that part of the bylaw? Or is that Judy's word? Let's see, how do I tell you? So that was October.
Do you need to see a copy of the bylaw?
Yeah, when it's site plan.
Okay, I see it on paper.
Okay.
So I don't see the reference to that wording in the bylaw at all. So I think that was Judy's attempt to reflect Mark's concerns on usable open space.
Yeah.
So I think we do have leeway in changing the wording on this.
Yeah, we can't.
Happy to.
We're bearing from the bylaw if we add that in.
No, it's not
No.
in the bylaw.
She was trying to format something based off of the conversations the board has had.
Yeah, we
About
should,
usable open space.
and if it's not in the bylaw, we can't require it.
We have a right to know
We
that.
have a right to know upland and wetlands,
Yeah.
so we'll just go with that. So,
Okay.
so we've got a motion and a second to accept with the proposed amendments of upland and wetland. I got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Uplands and wetlands.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to say aye to move ahead.
All right. 3-2.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. Last one. Inclusionary zoning housing form. All right. I'll entertain a motion to accept as proposed.
So moved.
You're not starting out well, Anna.
It hasn't started yet.
I know.
Okay.
Have to get it right and can't take go.
Any comments?
Oh, any comment from
The peanut gallery?
Yes.
Okay.
One comment on the inclusionary housing form is, I recognize that everything is pointing back to the article, but would it be helpful to actually identify on the form the threshold levels? So 0 to 5 houses is this, then 6 to 19 is X, and then,
It's identified in the article.
right.
Yeah, it's just, in my opinion, it's information that the applicant should have
Okay.
through the article, so.
So that was my only comment.
Redundance.
Okay.
Yeah. So, got a motion to approve as written. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay, you're not opposed, or you are opposed and yay.
Yes.
You are so.
You are so sour
Oh, my
tonight.
God.
All right, are we done now?
Nope. Nope, just taking on a minute. So, we have minutes to approve from April 5th. I have read.
I wasn't here, so I cannot vote on it.
Richard, did you have a chance to review the minutes?
I did. We're the only two that did.
Would you make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve them as written.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Jamie abstained, she wasn't present. Other, E, so on E, if everybody can take a quick peek at something that came in, and it is the job description drafted for a change in definition to Marin's position from planning administrator to town planner. And with the change in responsibilities, she does more work for the board, and she's given more latitude to advise us and to seek approvals and grants for us.
I think it's time, Mary. Become a, I mean, you've been a town planner. You just
Yes,
haven't had
she
the
has.
title. Yeah.
And so, if I could, I'd actually would like to first start off by saying this hopefully is my last meeting as chairman of the planning board for a while. And that being said, I feel like it's been a successful year for the board and for myself, and none of it would have been possible without Maren. So I want to thank her for her support as me as chair. Grateful for all the work that we got accomplished, and the 9,000 emails I've gotten from her in the last year, and phone calls while I'm trying to work at work. But it's been great. I think she's an excellent town planner, and I think it's about time she did the title. So
Why did you get so many phone calls? Because I think I got 2. in a whole
Nobody
year.
wanted to talk to you, Peter.
Well, that's perfectly fine with me. Let's see if we can work that out again.
So, That's my
You'll need
vote of
to- you'll need
support.
to
We've
keep
got it
him
from
as
Richard
chair.
as well.
Yep.
Any other comment from members of the board for supporting the job description and
I think it's
promotion?
good.
I think Brian's done a great job for 25 years that I've known her as, but I have no problem with it at all.
Then how come you
You're
guys
the only
didn't
one
make
who's been here
her,
longer, right?
how come you guys didn't make her a town planner
Because they
back
didn't
then?
want, they didn't want the description. They kept giving
Is
her.
there anything else we need to do here?
So the job description
Wait a
is
second, Mr.
is
Brown.
identified as town planner. I will give Michael a chance in a moment, but I just want to make sure that you've all,
I'm leaving.
Yeah, I think you did a great job. Yeah,
All right.
I think
Yes,
well
thank you.
overdue.
Thank you.
we do have a comment from the audience.
Yes, this is nothing to do with Marin's competence or contribution, the hours spent, and the quality of the work. In the job description provided to you, there is a mention, I'm concerned about mission creep. Okay.
Me too.
Okay. And on the, how it got there, I'm not quite sure, but on the description is included the words economic development.
Yes, and so we were going to talk about that. So Mara and I have had this conversation
Okay.
along with Mr. Bergman. So that was going to be amended out and we were going to talk about it. But
Okay.
yeah, so economic development is not going to be part of the job description.
That would be.
But thank you for bringing it up. so.
That's,
I did read that majority of it. I'd like to read it again before we really made a final decision on
Yeah.
it coming. I only got it today, and somehow or another it opened up in my computer, how I don't know. So I'd like to put that on the back burner and leave it alone and make a motion to close the meeting.
Well, could
So
No, we
before,
wanna
I
close the
would,
meeting. Come on, please.
as sitting chair, I'd like to see it approved tonight.
Yeah, I
As
was
my
going to say,
last
could I
thing.
do it before I leave?
Yes, Richard, would you please make the motion?
I make the motion that we change the pay grade, I mean, the title for Marin to town planner. Yeah.
But we're gonna still carry all the things that are in it.
We're gonna edit out economic development.
Both
So-
the pay grade goes along with it.
Well, and that decision is to the, what committee is that? The Personnel Board.
Personnel Board, we'll
Good.
review,
Good.
but they'll have this as the record. So I've got a motion, I've received a second. So
It's good.
approval seeking a final read at the next meeting, how's that? Does that work?
Yeah, it's up
But,
to you.
well, how long before it goes before Personnel Board?
It can go at any time.
Let's get it there. Let's
Yeah,
get it there.
good.
So I got a motion. Approved second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm not sure, I'm not opposed to the thing, but I want to see
You can abstain.
that it's an entirety.
You can abstain.
I'll abstain on this one, President. I want to read it again and see. And again, there were some things, as Mike had said also. The creep. All right, so now can you have a motion to close?
No,
No,
so.
wait, one more thing
I have
before we
to
close.
say-
I have something I also wanted to say, and, we were so busy this afternoon at the beginning of the meeting, but I personally want to take a moment to thank Richard for his service on the board, his support in my election, all the hard work that he's given, the guidance. I know we've had a bump in the road between him and I, but he's an excellent planner, and I think that he's been invaluable to our town in so many facets, and I just want to take a moment and say thank you, Richard, for all that you've done.
Well, thank you, Eddie. Yeah.
Nice work.
Thanks, guys.
Now let us out of here.
No, I want to.
What, there's only one more thing before I go. I'm the CPC representative. I can't be CPC representative in abstention. So when I leave, you guys got to nominate another CPC representative. I'd recommend Anna,
Okay.
if she gets voted in.
Okay. I know she's got a tough race ahead of her.
I'd absolutely recommend her,
Very good.
if she's willing to take it.
So
Well, she's going to get what we give her. She doesn't get to vote.
just a minute, guys. We have other priorities.
Focus
right.
on the master plan implementation committee,
Richard,
of course.
thank you for 10 years of service.
Mark,
We've had our ups and downs, but it's been a pleasure working with you.
when are you going to retire? I'm retiring.
I don't know, I'm a short.
Make a motion to close the meeting before this gets you, start kissing and
You
hugging.
know, we're not going to carry you out in a casket.
Well, you might have to, I don't know.
Can you second it?
No, hold on.
I think we're done.
Okay, guys, thank you all.
Richard, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank
How
you.
about you close the last meeting? Make a motion to
All right, I
close.
make a motion to close.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Good.
You did well. And your last vote was yours.